In the stillness of night, when the world outside grows quieter and the gentle rhythm of breath becomes more noticeable, stories come alive in a different way. They take on a softness, a slower cadence, and a kind of soothing music that can carry the mind toward rest. Tonight, we turn to one of the oldest and most enduring tales from the northern world, a legend woven in the halls of ancient poets, whispered in flickering firelight, and carried across generations until it reached us here. It is the story of Beowulf, the great Geatish warrior, and his battle with the shadow that haunted King Hrothgar's hall. It is a tale of courage, of monstrous darkness and radiant light, of triumphs hard won, and of the deep wisdom hidden in myth. Yet here, it is told not as a clash of noise and blood, but as a gentle journey through memory, spoken in calm tones so that even the fiercest struggle may feel like a lullaby. Before we begin the story itself, let us linger a little in the world of ancient storytelling. Thousands of years ago, when nights stretched long and fire was the center of warmth and safety, people would gather together in halls or small homes to share stories. These stories were more than entertainment. They were vessels of memory, carrying the values, fears, and dreams of their communities. Listeners leaned closer to the sound of the bard's voice, letting the words paint vast landscapes in their imaginations. Some of these stories were meant to instruct, to pass on lessons about honor, loyalty, or bravery. Others were simply meant to soothe, to give shape to mysteries that were otherwise too large to hold in the mind. To tell the story of Beowulf in this quiet moment is to step into that same circle of listeners, to let the ancient rhythm of words guide us into stillness. Beowulf is often called the first great epic of the English language. Though written down more than 1,000 years ago, the story itself was older still, passed through generations in the oral tradition. Its origins lie in the shifting lands of Scandinavia, among the Geats, the Danes, and the Swedes, whose lives were shaped by the sea and the seasons, by kinship and warfare, and by the ever-present sense of mystery in the world around them. What we have today is not just a record of their battles, but a window into how they dreamed. The poem, and the legends within it, reveal a culture that valued courage and strength, but also acknowledged the frailty of human life, the inevitability of loss, and the importance of memory. When we listen to Beowulf's story now, we step into that balance, between bold action and quiet reflection. The version we have is written in Old English, a language both familiar and strange. If you were to hear it spoken aloud, it might sound almost like a distant cousin of modern English, recognizable in fragments but mysterious in its full shape. And yet, across centuries and through translation, the heart of the story has remained. It is about a young hero, strong beyond measure, who sets sail to help a troubled king. It is about the shadow of Grendel, a creature born of exile and bitterness, who descends on the joy of men like a storm in the night. It is about battles fought, halls reclaimed, and the wisdom that comes not only from victory, but also from the awareness of time's passing. These themes have outlived kingdoms, survived through fires that consumed libraries, and continue to speak to listeners who seek both excitement and peace. As we begin this telling, imagine yourself sitting not before a glowing screen but within a great wooden hall, its beams stretching high overhead, the fire in the center glowing low and steady. Around you, the voices of others grow faint as they settle into drowsy silence. Outside, the wind presses softly against the walls, carrying with it the scent of pine and sea salt. A storyteller clears his throat, not rushing, not pressing forward, but letting the stillness make room for the tale. That is how we will enter Beowulf's world, slowly, gently, as if the words themselves were stepping stones across a calm stream. This story is not meant to startle or to jar you awake. It is meant to be walked through like a dream. When we speak of kings and warriors, of monsters and battles, it will not be with sharpness or haste. Instead, we will let the images rise as if from mist. The glow of firelight on polished shields, the sound of waves lapping against wooden hulls, the deep silence of the marshlands where Grendel lurked. All of these will appear quietly, lingering just long enough for you to imagine them before fading again into calm darkness. And so we invite you, gently, to release the weight of the day. Whatever thoughts linger in your mind, let them settle for now. as if they too are resting by the hearth. The story will do the work for you. It will guide you along its path, carrying you through lands of long ago without asking for effort. You need only listen, letting the rhythm of the words draw you into stillness. The ancient bards once sang this tale to remind their people of courage and endurance. Tonight, we tell it to remind you of peace. In a moment, we will cross into the world of the Danes, into the great hall of Heorot, where the first notes of joy are struck before the shadow falls. But for now, here at the threshold of the story, breathe deeply, let your shoulders soften, and allow the thought of ancient voices to lull you. This is the beginning of Beowulf's journey, and also the beginning of yours, through legend, through memory, and into rest. The world of the Danes was a land both stark and beautiful, shaped by the northern seas and the endless skies that stretched above them. Imagine, if you will, the rolling mists that drifted across low hills, the dark forests that whispered with the sound of wind, and the waters that carried long ships from one shore to another. It was a land where winters were long, where nights could stretch endlessly, and where the warmth of fire and fellowship was treasured more dearly because of the cold that pressed in from every side. This was the world into which the story of Beowulf opens, not in the heat of battle, but in the calm evocation of a place where life itself felt fragile yet strong, shaped by the resilience of those who lived there. The Danes were a people who found meaning in community and in the bonds of loyalty. They built their halls not only as shelters from the weather, but as symbols of shared life. The greatest of these halls was Heorot, built by King Hrothgar, a man whose wisdom and generosity were spoken of across the sea. Within those wooden walls, firelight flickered against gold ornaments, and the air was alive with song and laughter. Yet before we step into the light of that hall, it is worth pausing here, outside, and taking in the wider world. Scandinavia in those days was a landscape of both hardship and beauty. Long stretches of coast were lined with jagged cliffs, where waves broke endlessly in white foam, and seabirds circled with cries that echoed across the rocks. Inland, rivers wound their way through valleys, sometimes freezing solid in the coldest months, their surfaces gleaming like silver under the pale sun. Forests loomed large, filled with tall pines and oaks, places of both shelter and shadow, where the imagination could easily conjure figures half real and half legendary. To walk those lands in silence was to feel both awe and unease, for the natural world was vast, powerful, and often mysterious. It was in this environment that men and women lived close to the rhythms of the earth. The turn of the seasons guided their lives. In summer, the days stretched long, with sunlight lingering on the horizon as if reluctant to fade. In winter, darkness descended early, the sun appearing only briefly before sinking again, leaving the nights to dominate. During those long nights, storytelling and song were more than diversions. They were lifelines, ways of holding back the emptiness outside. The sound of a harp, the cadence of a poem, the memory of ancestors spoken aloud, all these filled the silence with meaning. The Danes were seafarers as well as farmers. Their ships were slender and strong, carved from oak, able to slip across the seas with both grace and speed. To imagine their ships is to see long dragon-headed prows cutting through the mist, sails swelling with the wind, and oars dipping in rhythm with the heartbeat of the crew. These ships connected kingdoms and carried not only warriors but also news, trade, and the stories of distant lands. To sail across those uncertain waters required both skill and courage, for storms could rise without warning, and the sea was as much a source of danger as it was a path to opportunity. It was in such a world that kings like Hrothgar rose to prominence. A king was more than a ruler. He was a protector, a giver of gifts, the heart of his people's safety and prosperity. The loyalty of his warriors was bound to him by trust and honor. In return, he was expected to provide feasts, treasures, and above all, protection. The great hall, such as Heorot, was therefore not merely a place of wood and stone. It was the living symbol of this relationship, the embodiment of community itself. To lose a hall was to lose a people's center, to scatter them into silence. To keep a hall thriving was to affirm the strength of the bond between king and kin. The world of the Danes was also one where myth and reality blended seamlessly. They lived surrounded by tales of ancient creatures, of giants and dragons, of spirits that wandered forests or lurked beneath lakes. These stories were not seen as mere inventions, but as living possibilities, woven into the fabric of the world they inhabited. The marshes that stretched across the land were not simply stretches of water and reeds. They were thought of as thresholds, places where one might encounter beings that belonged neither fully to this world nor the next. It is in such a marshland, dark and unknowable, that Grendel would later rise. But for now, we remain in the broader frame, seeing the world not yet disturbed by his shadow. In the mead halls of the Danes, life had a rhythm both steady and reassuring. Warriors would return from battle or from voyages across the sea, and they would gather around the fire, laying aside their weapons. Harps would sound, voices would rise in song, and the deeds of ancestors would be spoken aloud. The hall was filled with warmth, with the smells of roasted meat, with the sparkle of gold and jeweled cups. These moments were not taken for granted. They were the light that held back the darkness outside. Every feast was a reminder that life was fleeting and precious, to be savored while it lasted. To enter the story of Beowulf is to enter a world where such contrasts, between warmth and cold, light and shadow, joy and sorrow, were part of daily life. This balance between opposites shaped the imaginations of the people, giving rise to stories that embodied the struggles they felt around them. The Danes, like many early peoples, did not imagine their monsters as wholly external. Grendel, when he appears, is not just a beast from the wild, but a reflection of deeper fears, of exile, of separation from the bonds of kinship. But before he comes, we must first know the brightness of the hall he sought to destroy. So let us hold here, on the threshold of that hall, listening to the echoes of laughter that spill out into the night, while the forests around stand silent, and the sea murmurs in the distance. This is the world of the Danes, a world of stark beauty, of community and danger, of firelight and shadow. It is within this world that the story of Beowulf truly begins, a world where men sought joy even as darkness pressed in, where courage and fellowship were the threads that held life together. As you let these images settle in your mind, allow them to soften the edges of your own thoughts, preparing you for the tale that unfolds next within the walls of Heorot. Heorot was the jewel of Hrothgar's kingdom, the shining heart around which all life seemed to gather. It rose proudly from the land, its high roof visible from far across the fields and forests, like a beacon of warmth in a world where darkness often pressed too close. Built of strong timbers and crowned with antlered gables, it was more than a hall. It was a symbol of hope, generosity, and belonging. When travelers saw it, glimmering by torchlight, they knew they had reached a place where fellowship was alive, where bonds of kinship were honored, and where the voice of the harp would soon mingle with the laughter of warriors. Imagine stepping closer to this hall. The air outside is crisp, perhaps tinged with salt from the nearby sea, and the ground is firm beneath your feet. As you draw nearer, the faint murmur of voices begins to carry on the wind, followed by the brighter notes of song. The glow of firelight spills from the great entrance, flickering across the carved doors and spilling onto the earth. The sight itself is enough to stir a sense of safety, for within those walls lies a refuge from the long northern night. Inside Heorot, the scene is one of life at its fullest. The long hall stretches wide, lined with benches where warriors sit shoulder to shoulder. Great beams arch overhead, their surfaces blackened by smoke, yet gleaming with golden ornaments. Shields hang along the walls, polished and ready, reminders that these men were not only feasting companions but defenders of their king. At the center, a great fire burns in a long trench, its flames dancing upward, casting shifting shadows that seem almost alive. The warmth of the flames fills the hall, and above it all, voices rise in harmony, singing of heroes past. The songs themselves are worth pausing to imagine. These were not mere diversions. They were memory made music, the past kept alive in the present. A poet, known as a scop, would sing of battles fought long ago, of kinship bonds sealed in blood and treasure, of monsters defeated and oaths fulfilled. Each word reminded the listeners of who they were, of the chain of ancestors that had led to their own time. To be in that hall was to be woven into a story far larger than any one man's life. As the harp plays, cups are passed along the benches, brimming with mead, the honeyed drink that sweetens the night. Warriors lift their voices in laughter, telling stories of their own deeds, boasting in good spirit, their pride softened by the comfort of community. Meat, roasted over the fire, is carved and shared, and the smell of it lingers in the air. These moments of abundance are not endless, for life beyond the hall is hard, but they are treasured deeply, held close as memories against the harsher days to come. At the head of the hall sits Hrothgar himself, wise and strong, though the weight of years rests upon him. His throne is not one of cold distance, but of presence. His people look to him with respect, and his very being carries the calm authority of a man who has seen much. To his queen, Wealhtheow, belongs the role of gracious hostess. She moves through the hall with dignity, offering cups, welcoming guests, ensuring that all feel honored in her presence. Between them, king and queen, the hall finds its harmony. It is important to linger here in the light of Heorot, for soon shadows will fall, and the brightness of this moment will be set against the darkness outside. But for now, let the details linger. The creak of wood as men shift on the benches. The sound of laughter ringing like bells above the fire's crackle. The scent of smoke, mead, and roasted meat blending into something rich and comforting. The sight of warriors resting their hands on the hilts of swords, their weapons gleaming faintly in the firelight, ready should they be needed. All of this paints a picture of life at its peak, of joy so strong that it dares the night to challenge it. The hall itself was named Heorot, which means heart, or stag. Like the stag, proud and majestic, the hall was a symbol of strength, of nobility, of something untamed yet protective. Its antlered roof, carved high above, reflected this symbolism. The name was a promise, that here was a place where strength and courage were celebrated, where life was held aloft even in a harsh and uncertain world. But as every listener of the tale knew, such brightness often calls forth shadow. For joy, when it is abundant, can stir envy. Laughter, when it rings too freely, can awaken bitterness in those who dwell beyond its light. Even as Hrothgar's hall resounded with music and fellowship, a figure lurked in the darkness beyond its walls, listening with ears sharpened by hatred. The joy that filled the hall was a song of life, but for some, it was also a reminder of exile, of exclusion, of a wound that could not heal. Though we will soon come to that figure, known as Grendel, we must first steep ourselves in the brightness that he sought to end. For listeners in the ancient world, this contrast was deeply felt. The hall was not just a place, it was an ideal. It represented the triumph of order over chaos, of human fellowship over the loneliness of wilderness. When the poet sang of Heorot, he was not only describing a building but evoking a vision of life as it should be, where people came together, where gifts were given, where loyalty bound men to their king and to each other. To lose such a place was not merely to lose shelter, it was to lose meaning itself. And so we pause here, at the height of joy, where the Danes gather under Hrothgar's roof, their hearts warmed by fire and fellowship. Outside, the forests lie silent, the marshes brood in their stillness, and the cold wind rattles branches in the dark. Inside, however, the hall is alive, blazing with light, with voices lifted in pride, with the enduring sense that life, though fleeting, can be celebrated with joy. As you hold this image in your mind, the gleaming hall, the warmth, the music, let it settle like a memory of safety. This is Heorot, the place where our story roots itself, a hall that will become the stage for struggle, sorrow, and victory. But for now, it is only light, only laughter, only the gathering of a people under their king. Soon, the shadow will come, but let us not rush. For even in stories, it is important to breathe in the brightness before the darkness falls. Even as Heorot shone with firelight and laughter, beyond the reach of its warmth and the echo of song, a different presence stirred. The world outside the hall was not empty or still, but alive with secrets older than any king or hall. Among the twisted trees of the forests, across marshes that whispered under the night wind, and in the shadowed hills, something watched. Its eyes were patient, its thoughts dark, and its loneliness deep. This was Grendel, a creature both monstrous and mournful, exiled from the joys of human life, born into a lineage marked by sorrow and bitterness. Though we tell this tale to soothe and to calm, it is important to feel the shape of his shadow, for it is in contrast to the light of Heorot that the hero, Beowulf, will rise. Grendel's origins are steeped in myth and memory, tied to stories that humans whispered to explain the presence of evil and misfortune. He was descended from Cain, the first murderer according to ancient lore, cast out by God and forced to wander in exile. This lineage marked him not only with a sense of guilt, but with an inability to belong. Unlike the men of Heorot, who gathered in fellowship, who found warmth and purpose in community, Grendel moved through the night in solitude. Every sound of joy, every burst of laughter from the hall, struck him with a pain that he could neither name nor relieve. It was this pain, mingled with anger, that drew him ever closer to Heorot, night after night. Imagine him moving silently through the marshes, each step careful yet deliberate, as if he had learned to glide without disturbing the natural world around him. The reeds sway, water ripples softly, and the forest holds its breath. There is no sudden rush, no startling noise, only the quiet inevitability of his approach. The creature is immense, his shape shadowed and shifting, his claws hidden beneath long, sinewy fingers. In the darkness, he is almost a part of the night itself, a reminder that the world beyond the hall is vast, untamed, and capable of harboring what humans fear most. Yet even in imagining him, we do not dwell on terror. Instead, we notice the rhythm of his movement, the subtle weight of his presence, and the strange, lonely echo that he carries with him. Grendel is both feared and pitiable. The Danes tell of his strength, of the havoc he wreaks, yet the stories also hint at his sorrow. Exiled from joy, rejected by the very forces that shaped the world, he wanders without kin or companion. His lair is dark, hidden in a desolate marsh, a place of water and mud, of tangled reeds and stagnant pools. In this solitude, he becomes larger than life, his loneliness amplified until it manifests as violence. Yet we must remember that in myths, monsters are not only threats, they are mirrors. Grendel reflects the parts of the world that are unclaimed by joy, the shadows that accompany light, the pain that lingers when connection is lost. The nights of Heorot are long, and each time the hall fills with song and laughter, the contrast with Grendel's solitude grows sharper. The men inside raise their voices to tell stories, their words bright as the firelight that dances across their shields. Outside, Grendel listens, silent yet burning with a longing he cannot soothe. His approach is deliberate, almost ritualistic, as if the rhythm of his steps is in itself a kind of dark music, echoing the joy he cannot touch. It is in this tension, between the light of the hall and the shadow beyond, that the story gains its depth, and it is here that we feel the careful pacing of the legend, the balance between fear and fascination. Even as we consider Grendel's darkness, it is worth noting that the story does not present him as purely evil. He is part of the natural and supernatural world, a creature whose existence reminds us of the fragility of order, of the preciousness of fellowship. The Danes themselves sense this imbalance. They cannot simply ignore the darkness. It is woven into their lives, into their feasts, into the very structure of Heorot. To confront Grendel is not only a matter of strength, but of understanding the world's dual nature, the coexistence of light and shadow, of community and solitude, of joy and pain. To picture Grendel is to enter a dreamlike space. Imagine the marshes at night, pale mist curling over dark waters, reeds whispering secrets to the wind. Somewhere beneath this quiet surface, he moves with patience, his thoughts a mixture of rage, loneliness, and ancient sorrow. The moon casts a pale glow on the water, illuminating ripples that mark his passage. It is a world apart from the hall's warmth, yet intimately connected to it, for every step he takes brings him closer to the light he cannot share. In imagining him this way, we can feel both tension and calm, a gentle anticipation that does not jar the mind but prepares it for the story to come. Even now, in this moment of quiet reflection, we can sense the inevitability of his approach. He is drawn toward life, toward warmth, toward the laughter that marks human joy. And yet, he is bound by his nature, by the shadow that clings to him. In a way, Grendel's presence enhances the beauty of Herit, just as night enhances the stars. Without the shadow, the firelight would lose some of its meaning, the laughter would lose its poignancy, and the courage of those who face him would have no context. The interplay of dark and light, of solitude and community, is the very essence of the tale, and it is what allows the story to be both engaging and soothing, even in its moments of tension. So, as we linger here, imagining Herit glowing with life and Grendel moving silently through the marshes, let the mind absorb both images. Let the contrast settle like a gentle tide, washing over the imagination without creating ripples of fear. The shadow exists, and the hall exists, and the story will unfold in the space between them. It is a space where anticipation is calm, where curiosity is gentle, and where the rhythm of the legend begins to carry us deeper into its world. Soon, we will see the consequences of Grendel's approach, the first night of terror that will challenge the bright heart of Herit. But for now, we simply imagine him, moving in the dark, a creature shaped by exile and sorrow, a shadow against the warmth of firelight. And as we do, we allow ourselves to settle into the gentle rhythm of the tale, letting its imagery lull the mind and preparing for the journey that is just beginning. For many years, Herit, the great hall of Hrothgar, had stood as a beacon of light, laughter, and fellowship. Its walls had seen countless feasts, its floors had borne the steps of warriors and poets, and its air had carried the songs of both triumph and remembrance. Yet, for all its brightness and joy, the shadow that lingered beyond its doors was patient and unyielding. Night after night, Grendel returned, unseen but always felt, a dark rhythm intruding upon the music of life. The terror he brought was not sudden. It stretched slowly, like mist creeping over the marshes, seeping into the dreams of those who dwelled within the hall. The Danes began to measure time not by the turning of the seasons alone, but by the nights of fear, when the air grew thick with the sense of an unseen watcher. Imagine the nights themselves, the firelight flickering, casting moving shadows on the carved walls, and the laughter of men fading as the hour grew late. Even in sleep, some would sense a presence at the edge of vision, a cold ripple in the warmth of the hall. Doors and gates, no matter how stout, could not fully shield them from the horror that awaited. Grendel struck without warning, emerging from the dark waters and misty marshes to snatch the unwary, leaving behind the echo of cries that would haunt the long hours until dawn. It was a terror both real and surreal, a reminder that even in moments of comfort, life could be fragile. Over time, the Danes adapted to the rhythm of this fear, though no one grew accustomed to it fully. The hall, once a sanctuary, became a place of vigilance. Some nights were spent with eyes half open, listening for the sound of heavy steps in the dark. Others passed in tense silence, the songs of the scop subdued, as if speaking too loudly might draw the shadow closer. The presence of Grendel was constant, a dark pulse underlying every sound, every movement. And yet, there was also a strange, hypnotic cadence to it, a rhythm that became part of the life of Herit, shaping the hearts and minds of its people in ways that were subtle but enduring. The terror Grendel wrought was not merely physical. It was the quiet devastation of hope interrupted, of joy stolen. Families were shaken by loss. Warriors were haunted by their inability to protect. And the songs that once carried tales of heroism now trembled with the knowledge of what could be lost in an instant. The Danes, for all their courage, found their days colored by shadow, a constant reminder that the light of their hall was precious precisely because it could be so easily taken away. In the stillness of night, the echo of empty halls spoke louder than any shout, and the absence of laughter became a palpable presence, pressing gently on the imagination. Grendel's attacks, though terrifying, were never random. There was a rhythm, a pattern, a terrible predictability in their unpredictability. He would strike during feasts, when the hall was filled with warmth and song, as if drawn by the very essence of life he could not partake in. The swoop of his claws, the heavy impact of his stride, the brief, chilling cries of those he claimed, all of it became part of the collective memory of the Danes. In time, even children came to know the rhythm of caution, the soft warning whispered by parents, the quiet gestures that said, "Wait," Listen, be patient. These were not nights of chaos, but nights of careful attention, a slow, measured dance with fear that shaped the character of a people. Through all this, Hrothgar remained a figure of stability. Though he felt the weight of despair, he did not surrender to it. His presence in the hall was a constant anchor, a reminder that courage is not the absence of fear, but the perseverance in its midst. The king's words, when he spoke of past victories or of the virtues of loyalty, carried a calm authority, easing some of the tension that gripped the hall. Yet even Hrothgar knew that the menace of Grendel was a reminder that human strength and wisdom, though vast, could always be challenged by forces beyond control. It was a humbling truth, quietly acknowledged, shaping the tone of life within Heorot. In imagining these years, we must picture not only the terror but the subtle beauty of endurance. The Danes did not abandon their hall. They continued to feast, to sing, to honor their bonds, even as the shadow lurked. There is a calm in this persistence, a meditative quality in the slow, deliberate continuation of life despite fear. Each song sung, each fire stoked, each shared cup of mead, became a small triumph, a quiet assertion that joy, however threatened, could persist. The interplay of shadow and light here is not only dramatic. It is soothing, a reflection of the human capacity to maintain grace in the presence of adversity. For listeners, it is this rhythm that carries the story into sleep. Imagine the long nights as gentle waves, some carrying fear, others carrying warmth, moving together in a slow, deliberate pattern. Grendel's approach, though dark, is measured, predictable, almost musical in its inevitability. The light of Heorot, though threatened, glows all the brighter for the contrast. In this interplay, there is a strange comfort, a reminder that even shadows have their place, and that the endurance of life's brightness is often most deeply felt when measured against darkness. And so, we linger on these years of terror, not with dread, but with understanding. The people of Heorot, though threatened night after night, continue to live, to gather, to celebrate what they have. In doing so, they show the resilience of the human spirit, a quiet strength that needs no sword to prove its existence. The shadow of Grendel may loom, but it also highlights the value of the hall, the warmth of community, and the depth of courage that ordinary life can contain. In this way, the terror becomes part of the rhythm of life, a gentle reminder of fragility, endurance, and the preciousness of moments filled with light and laughter. And as you imagine these long nights, the misty marshes beyond the hall, and the quiet tension that stretches from firelight to shadow, allow yourself to settle into the gentle cadence of the story, ready to follow the next chapter when hope begins to stir again, with the arrival of a hero from across the sea. Far across the sea from the marshes and forests of Denmark lay the land of the Geats, a rugged country of wide rivers, dense woods, and open plains where the wind swept freely across hills and valleys. It was here, in a place touched by both sunlight and storm, that Beowulf, the hero of our tale, had grown. The Geats were a people much like the Danes in their courage, their loyalty, and their love of story. Their villages were built near rivers or along the coastline. Wooden homes clustered together for warmth and protection, with hearth fires that glowed like small stars against the encroaching darkness of night. Life in Geatland was shaped by the rhythms of nature, by the turn of the seasons, and by the ever-present understanding that strength and wisdom were necessary for survival. Beowulf himself was known from a young age to be different from other men. Even as a boy, he carried a quiet confidence, a sense of purpose that set him apart. His strength was remarkable, but it was not merely physical. It was accompanied by a mind that sought understanding, a heart that honored loyalty and kindness, and a courage that was steady rather than reckless. In imagining him in his homeland, picture a young man walking along the edge of a river at dawn, the mist curling above the water, his thoughts drifting toward the deeds he might one day perform. The land of the Geats shaped him as much as any training or tale could, offering both challenge and calm, teaching patience alongside skill. The villages of Geatland were connected by a network of paths and rivers, along which messengers traveled, carrying news of both joy and hardship. Men and women lived close to the earth, farming, fishing, and raising livestock, while the forests provided both shelter and danger. Wolves might stalk the night, deer might move silently through the trees, and birds would call across the hills. The people of this land learned to listen to the rhythms of nature, to watch the sky for signs of weather, and to honor the cycles of growth and decay that governed life. In such a setting, the heroism of Beowulf was rooted not only in deeds of strength, but in the steady observation of the world around him, the wisdom born of attentive presence. Beowulf's family and community played a significant role in shaping the man he would become. He was raised with stories of his ancestors, tales of valor and endurance that served as both guidance and inspiration. These stories, passed down through generations, were imbued with lessons about honor, duty, and the fleeting nature of life. Every feast, every gathering of warriors, every song sung around the hearth contributed to his understanding of the world and his place within it. Even as he grew stronger and more capable, Beowulf's character was molded by this intimate connection to family and land, a quiet strength that prepared him for the journey that awaited across the sea. When word of Hrothgar's plight reached Geatland, Beowulf listened with care. Though he was still young, the news stirred something deep within him, a sense of purpose, a call to action that resonated with both courage and compassion. The tales of Heorot, of the great hall filled with song and firelight, and of the shadow that haunted it, touched him in a way that demanded response. He understood that heroism was not about seeking glory for its own sake, but about stepping into the unknown when the world needed protection. The thought of leaving his homeland, sailing across uncertain waters to face a monster he had never seen, might have daunted another man, but for Beowulf, it became a call he could not ignore. Preparation for such a journey was itself a ritual, steeped in both anticipation and mindfulness. Beowulf would gather his closest warriors, men whose loyalty was as certain as his own, and together they would inspect weapons, sharpen blades, and ready ships for the sea. Each step was taken deliberately, each task infused with care and attention. In imagining this process, picture the sun dipping low in the sky, the river reflecting its warm glow, and the soft murmur of the wind through the trees as if whispering encouragement. The quiet moments of preparation are as important as the battles that follow, for they allow both hero and listener to enter the story with measured calm and confidence. Even the act of leaving Geatland is portrayed with a sense of rhythm and peace. The long ships glide across the water, their sails catching the wind, the oars dipping in steady motion. Waves ripple against the hull, and the cries of distant seabirds punctuate the gentle hum of the sea. The journey is not rushed, it is deliberate, almost meditative, giving space for reflection and anticipation. In this way, Beowulf's crossing becomes a bridge not only between lands but between states of mind, between the safety of home and the unknown challenge ahead, between stillness and action, between the familiar and the mythic. It is also worth noting that in Geatland, the natural world and the world of human endeavor are intertwined. Beowulf's strength is admired not only for what it can accomplish in battle, but also for how it harmonizes with the rhythms of the land. His connection to his homeland gives him balance, grounding him as he prepares to step into the dangerous, unfamiliar realm of Denmark. The forests, rivers, and hills of Geatland have taught him patience, awareness, and the quiet courage that will define his encounters with the dark forces he will face. So as we picture Beowulf in his homeland, imagine a man shaped by both landscape and lineage, by stories and songs, by the enduring rhythms of a life lived in close harmony with the world. The winds of Geatland carry whispers of adventure, yet they also carry a sense of calm, preparing both hero and listener for the crossing to come. From this serene yet purposeful place, Beowulf steps forward, carrying with him not only the strength of his body, but the wisdom and courage nurtured by the land that raised him. And as you hold this vision of Geatland in your mind, let the landscape, the gentle river currents, the towering trees, and the soft light of early morning seep into your imagination. These images will accompany you through the next chapter of the story, as Beowulf hears the call across the sea and begins the journey that will bring him to Heorot, to the hall of laughter and firelight, and eventually to the shadow that waits there. The calm preparation, the steady rhythm of life, and the deep connection to home all serve as a foundation, both for the hero and for you, the listener, as we continue this tale together. News travels in its own quiet way in a land shaped by rivers, forests, and the ever-watchful sky. Word of King Hrothgar's plight, carried by messengers and travelers across the sea and through the hills of Geatland, reached Beowulf as he tended to his own people. The message was simple in its telling but profound in its implications. The great hall of Heorot, shining with firelight and song, was plagued by a creature of shadow, a monster that moved through the night unseen, leaving fear and sorrow in its wake. For many, this news might have been a cause for despair or for turning away, but for Beowulf, it stirred a calm, steady resolve. He understood, as one might sense in a quiet moment of reflection, that some challenges, though daunting, were meant to be met with courage and purpose. Beowulf did not react with haste or boastfulness. Instead, he allowed the news to settle in his mind, turning it over like a stone in a stream, feeling its weight and texture. The story of Heorot, of the joy it contained and the shadow that threatened it, resonated with him. He saw not only the suffering of the Danes, but the opportunity to protect something beautiful and enduring. His response was deliberate, measured, and infused with a sense of duty. For a hero, true courage is not merely the absence of fear, but the careful attention to what must be done, and the willingness to step forward when others might hesitate. Preparing for such a journey required both thought and ritual. Beowulf first gathered his closest warriors, men whose loyalty and skill he trusted implicitly. These companions were not chosen in haste, but for their steadfastness, their understanding of both the rigors of battle and the subtler demands of discipline and honor. Together, they inspected their weapons, checking the edges of swords, the strength of shields, and the readiness of armor. Each motion was deliberate, almost meditative, with the clang of metal and the whisper of leather becoming part of the rhythm of preparation. Even in the midst of anticipation, there was calm, a quiet focus that mirrored the measured patience of the hero himself. Ships were prepared for the crossing, long vessels carved from sturdy oak, their prows shaped to cut through the water with grace and stability. The sails were unfurled and examined, the ropes coiled with care, and every plank was inspected to ensure the vessel would meet the uncertainties of the sea. Imagine these ships resting on the sand near a gently lapping shore, their timbers reflecting the pale light of dawn, waiting to carry Beowulf and his companions across waters that shimmer like glass in the morning sun. Even the sea, which could be unpredictable and formidable, seemed to acknowledge the calm determination of those about to sail upon it, responding with gentle waves that kissed the hulls and whispered encouragement. Beowulf's preparation extended beyond physical readiness. He spent time in reflection, considering what it meant to confront the shadow that haunted Heorot. Courage, he understood, required clarity of purpose, a sense of connection not only to one's own strength, but to the lives and hopes of others. In these quiet moments, he considered the Danes' suffering, the laughter and light of their hall, and the deeper significance of restoring balance to their world. Such reflection was itself a form of readiness, a cultivation of patience and focus that would sustain him through the trials to come. The decision to leave Geatland, to step into the uncertain waters of the sea, was made with both solemnity and quiet excitement. The act of departure is never a simple one, for it carries with it a leaving behind of home, of comfort, and of familiarity. Yet in that departure, there is also the promise of purpose, the possibility of testing one's mettle, and the chance to restore harmony where it has been disturbed. Beowulf's resolve was clear, a calm certainty that he would act not for glory alone, but for the preservation of something good and enduring. As the ships were prepared and the warriors readied themselves, a sense of rhythm emerged, a gentle cadence that carried the group forward. The work of preparation, though physical, became almost like a meditation, each action deliberate and intentional, each movement contributing to the harmony of the whole. There was no rush, no panic, only the steady unfolding of events, much like the turning of the seasons or the ebb and flow of tides. This rhythm mirrors the storytelling itself, for the listener is invited to move through these moments with calm attention, feeling the weight and anticipation without anxiety. Finally, the moment arrived when Beowulf and his companions stepped aboard their vessels. The hulls glided over the sand, The oars rested at the ready, and the sails caught the first whispers of wind. As the ships pushed into the water, imagine the gentle rocking, the soft splash of oars, and the serene horizon stretching out before them. The voyage ahead is unknown, but it is approached with calm determination, a balance of readiness and reflection. In this, Beowulf models a kind of heroism that is not frantic or reckless, but composed, patient, and aware of both the dangers and the beauty that lie ahead. Even now, as we envision the ships beginning their journey across the sea, we sense the interplay of anticipation and serenity. The water is smooth, the morning light soft and forgiving, and the companions move in quiet harmony. This moment, poised between leaving and arriving, between preparation and action, allows the listener to settle fully into the rhythm of the tale. There is a sense of purpose, yes, but also a meditative quality that soothes and prepares the mind for the unfolding story. And so, with careful preparation, reflection, and a deep sense of duty, Beowulf sets sail, leaving Geatland behind and moving toward Denmark, toward Heorot, and toward the shadow that awaits. The journey is not merely physical. It is a transition of focus and heart, a gentle passage from one realm of safety to another of uncertainty. In this way, we, too, move with him, carried along by the calm cadence of words, ready to witness the next chapter of adventure and the hero's first confrontation with the darkness that has haunted a hall of light for so many years. The morning light kissed the waves as Beowulf and his companions pushed their longships into the water, the oars dipping rhythmically into the calm sea. There was a quiet majesty in the movement, a sense that the world itself recognized the importance of this journey. Each stroke of the oar was deliberate, carrying the crew forward while the gentle swell of the water created a soothing, almost hypnotic cadence. Imagine the soft splash of waves against the hull, the wind whispering through the sails, and the vast expanse of sky stretching overhead, pale blue in the early hours, promising clarity and purpose. Traveling across the sea in those times was both simple and profound. The horizon seemed endless, a meeting of water and sky that suggested both possibility and mystery. The Geats, seasoned by rivers and smaller voyages, felt the rhythm of the ocean in their bones, moving with its pulse rather than against it. The longships, narrow and graceful, glided through the waters like extensions of the crew themselves, responding to each subtle shift of wind and wave. For the traveler, each moment on the sea carried its own lessons: patience, awareness, and the quiet satisfaction of moving steadily toward a distant goal. Beowulf, seated near the prow of the ship, felt the sea's rhythm in a way that was almost meditative. The motion of the vessel, the whispering wind, and the gentle lap of water against the sides created a cadence that matched his own heartbeat. In this moment, he was both observer and participant, attentive to the movements of his companions, aware of the subtle signals of the sea, and reflective of the journey ahead. There was no rush, no anxious anticipation, only the calm understanding that each stroke, each wave, and each breath carried him closer to his purpose. The companions around him were equally attuned to this rhythm. Though young and strong, they moved with quiet precision, their hands steady on oars and ropes. Occasionally, one would glance toward the horizon, noting distant clouds or the glimmer of sunlight on a far-off wave. There was a shared understanding, almost unspoken, that this voyage was more than a simple crossing. It was a preparation of mind and spirit, a gradual attunement to the challenges that awaited on foreign shores. The sea, vast and indifferent, became both teacher and companion, offering moments of reflection amidst the forward motion. As the hours passed, the landscape of water and sky began to shift. Clouds moved lazily, their reflections mirrored in the gentle ripples below. The sun climbed higher, warming faces and glinting on the waves, while gulls circled above, their cries distant yet familiar. Even the smallest details, the creak of timbers, the scent of salt in the air, the soft hush of wind, added layers to the meditative experience of the journey. In this way, the sea itself became a character in the story, carrying both hero and listener through a space that was both calm and charged with quiet anticipation. The mind, left to wander along with the gentle rocking of the ship, begins to absorb the nuances of the journey. One can imagine the occasional dolphin tracing the wake, the way the light shifts on the rolling surface, and the feeling of water droplets misting softly in the air. There is a rhythm to observation, a quiet awareness that mirrors the hero's inner steadiness. Every detail, from the glint of metal on the ships to the distant shimmer of land on the horizon, contributes to a sense of both immersion and calm, allowing the listener to move with Beowulf through space and imagination simultaneously. The crossing is not without its subtle challenges, though they are gentle in our telling. Waves rise and fall with a measured grace. Currents push the vessels in unexpected ways, and the wind shifts unpredictably. Yet none of this creates panic. It is simply part of the rhythm of the sea, a reminder that the world is alive and responsive. The crew adjusts with quiet skill, leaning into each movement, letting the ships respond naturally. In these moments, the story's tension is soft and reflective, a gentle contrast to the controlled lightness of calm anticipation. Even the unpredictable elements of the voyage become part of the meditative experience, highlighting the harmony between human effort and natural rhythm. Night approaches slowly over the expanse of water, and with it comes a different kind of quiet. The sky darkens gradually, stars appearing like tiny pinpricks of distant light. The water becomes a mirror for the heavens, reflecting constellations and the pale glow of the moon. Beowulf and his companions rest in turns, the gentle sway of the ship cradling them in a rhythm that soothes body and mind alike. Even the most restless thoughts settle under the canopy of night, as the sea encourages reflection and quiet endurance. The journey across the water becomes a passage not only of distance but of awareness, teaching the value of patience, observation, and gentle persistence. As the voyage continues, the shores of Denmark draw slowly closer, first as a vague line against the horizon, then with more distinct shape and color. The anticipation is not sharp or anxious. It is the calm recognition of purpose nearing fulfillment. The land ahead, hear it, and the shadow that has haunted it await. And yet the journey itself, the gentle rocking of the ship, the rhythm of oars and wind, the soft reflections on the water, remains an integral part of the story, a space in which the mind can prepare for what is to come, absorbing both the beauty of travel and the promise of challenge. So, as we imagine Beowulf and his companions moving steadily across the serene sea, let the listener settle into the same rhythm. Feel the gentle motion, the soft sound of waves, the expansive sky, and the quiet strength of the hero as he approaches the unknown. This is a moment of calm before the unfolding story of action and confrontation, a reminder that even the journey itself carries wisdom, reflection, and a gentle sense of wonder. The sea, in its vastness, mirrors the inner steadiness of Beowulf, preparing both him and us to enter the next chapter of the tale, where land, hull, and shadow converge. The horizon slowly revealed the shape of land, a gentle line rising from the shimmer of the sea. Beowulf and his companions leaned forward, their eyes tracing the distant coastline, feeling the soft excitement of anticipation mixed with calm purpose. The sun, now dipping lower in the sky, cast a warm glow over the water, reflecting in gentle streaks that danced across the hulls of the ships. Each ripple of the waves seemed to echo the slow heartbeat of the approaching adventure, a rhythm that carried both hero and listener toward the story's next chapter. As the longships drew nearer to Denmark, the details of the coast became clearer. Low hills rolled into the distance, dotted with trees whose branches swayed softly in the breeze. Smoke rose gently from the small villages scattered along the shoreline, a quiet reminder of life unfolding far from the shadow of Herit. The smell of salt and seaweed mingled with the faint scent of wood smoke, carrying the promise of both nourishment and human warmth. The world seemed to pause in this quiet liminality between the vastness of the sea and the promise of land, as if holding its breath for the first meeting between the Geats and the Danes. Upon arrival, the ships touched the sand with gentle grace. The crew disembarked, their movements calm and deliberate, feeling the firmness of the earth beneath their feet after the soft rocking of the sea. The sound of boots on sand and the soft creak of timbers settling created a rhythm of transition, a bridge between the serenity of the voyage and the activity of the world ahead. Beowulf himself stood at the prow for a moment longer, taking in the scene, letting the air carry both the salt of the sea and the faint warmth of the land into his awareness. This moment of pause is crucial, a chance to absorb the environment and center oneself before stepping fully into a world shaped by both light and shadow. From a distance, the great hall of Heorot became visible. Its towering timbers, crowned with gleaming carvings and antlered gables, reflected the late sun, shimmering like gold against the surrounding greenery. Smoke rose from the central hearth, drifting lazily into the sky, and the distant sounds of voices carried faintly on the breeze. The hall radiated life and community, a place of laughter and song, yet it bore the subtle weight of tension, the echo of nights haunted by Grendel's shadow. Beowulf, even at a distance, sensed the duality of the hall, its warmth and its vulnerability, its celebration and the quiet fear that lingered beyond its walls. The Danes, aware of the approaching longships, gathered along the shore to meet the newcomers. Warriors and retainers stood in lines, their eyes alert yet measured, watching the Geats with both curiosity and respect. Among them was Wulfgar, Hrothgar's herald, a man of calm authority whose role was to guide visitors and ensure the hall remained secure. Wulfgar's gaze met Beowulf's as the ships came to rest, a silent acknowledgement of purpose and valor, and a quiet invitation to step forward into the world of Heorot. The first interactions were deliberate, courteous, and measured, echoing the calm rhythm of the voyage itself. As Beowulf stepped onto the land, he carried with him not only his own strength, but also the collective presence of his companions, their steady support a silent reassurance. The journey had prepared them, shaping their minds as much as their bodies, and now that preparation bore fruit in measured confidence. Every movement was purposeful, every gesture considered, and every step toward the hall carried the weight of intention. The arrival was not hurried or frantic. It was a gentle unfolding, a quiet merging of worlds, and a soft prelude to the challenges ahead. Entering the hall for the first time, Beowulf and his companions were struck by the grandeur of Heorot. The interior was alive with the warm glow of firelight, which danced across polished shields, carved beams, and gleaming ornaments. The air carried the scent of roasted meat and sweet mead, and the low murmur of voices rose in anticipation of the visitors. Warriors and retainers watched with attentive curiosity, noting the calm confidence of the newcomers. Even amidst the lingering tension of past nights, the hall radiated a sense of order and purpose, a space in which courage and fellowship were honored in equal measure. Beowulf approached Hrothgar, whose presence exuded both wisdom and serenity. The king rose to greet the Geatish hero, extending hospitality with dignity and grace. Their exchange was measured and respectful, acknowledging the gravity of the situation while honoring the calm and deliberate presence of each participant. Hrothgar's eyes, wise and reflective, met Beowulf's with a quiet recognition of strength and integrity. This initial meeting set the tone for the coming events, framing the narrative in a balance of anticipation and measured reassurance. The presence of the hall, its warmth, its people, and the subtle tension of past terror all combined to create a sense of calm anticipation. The hero had arrived, and the stage was set for the unfolding story. The contrasts of light and shadow, of past joy and lingering fear, of journeyed calm and the looming threat beyond, all converged in this moment. For the listener, this is a space to settle into the rhythm of the tale, feeling both the serenity of preparation and the soft tension of impending adventure. And so, Beowulf stands within Heorot, absorbing the grandeur of the hall, acknowledging the weight of responsibility, and sensing the shadow that waits beyond the light. This arrival is not merely physical. It is a passage into the heart of the story, a gentle immersion into a world of courage, fellowship, and measured anticipation. The listener, like the hero, is invited to pause, reflect, and let the imagery and rhythm of the hall wash over the mind, preparing for the encounters and revelations that will soon unfold. The first night in Heorot arrived with a quiet inevitability, carrying with it a mixture of anticipation and subtle unease. The hall, still warm from the day's activities and glowing with the last traces of firelight, seemed to exhale a slow, steady rhythm, welcoming the Geats while holding the memory of past terrors. Beowulf, mindful of both the hall's grandeur and the shadow it carried, observed the space with a measured calm. Every beam, every carved ornament, every flicker of flame seemed alive with history, with the echoes of laughter and song that had once filled the hall, and with the faint tremor of fear left by Grendel's nightly visits. As evening deepened, the Danes began to prepare for rest. The long benches, still polished by the footsteps of warriors, offered seating for those who remained awake, while others settled on the floor or upon furs, seeking comfort in the familiarity of routine. Beowulf and his companions were given places of honor, near the heart of the hall, where firelight glimmered across shields and swords. The atmosphere was not tense with panic. It was suffused instead with a gentle vigilance, a quiet awareness of the darkness that lingered beyond the walls. The contrast between warmth and shadow, between light and the unknown, was subtle but perceptible, creating a setting that was both soothing and suspenseful. The sounds of the hall at night were meditative in their own way. The murmur of voices, low and conversational, mixed with the occasional creak of timbers as the building settled, and the soft crackle of the hearth as flames danced. Even in these ordinary noises, there was a rhythm, a pulse that could be felt in the chest of anyone present. Beowulf, attuned to both the physical and emotional environment, noticed these details, allowing them to settle his mind and sharpen his awareness. The calm vigilance of the night, the soft cadence of human presence, became a companion to him as he prepared for the inevitable encounter that had drawn him across the sea. Outside, the world was quiet, yet alive. The wind whispered through the marshes and trees, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and distant water. Somewhere far off, the marshes stirred with the subtle, unseen movement of Grendel, whose shadowy presence had waited patiently for this night. The creature's approach was deliberate and silent, a slow rhythm that mirrored the measured calm of the hall, yet carried with it a sense of impending disruption. In imagining him, one must notice the quiet inevitability, the almost musical cadence of his steps, and the way darkness and patience combine to form a presence both unsettling and mesmerizing. The first night in Heorot is significant not only for the physical encounter, but for the interplay of contrast. The hall's light against Grendel's shadow, human warmth against solitary menace, laughter against silence. Beowulf, fully aware of this tension, allowed himself to feel both the calm and the anticipation. Courage, he understood, was not merely the act of striking first or resisting fear. It was the capacity to remain centered, to observe, and to act with deliberate precision when the moment demanded. This night, like the slow unfolding of a dream, was a space of preparation, reflection, and measured awareness. As the hours crept forward, the hall settled into a deeper, almost hypnotic rhythm. The flames burned lower, casting long, shifting shadows that seemed to dance in slow motion across the polished beams. Some warriors slept, others whispered in hushed tones, and the quiet breathing of the hall became a kind of lullaby, steady and continuous. Beowulf, lying in careful rest, remained alert not through anxiety, but through calm attentiveness. His senses were attuned to every sound and movement, every subtle shift in air and shadow, allowing him to anticipate the approach of the darkness beyond the hall without being consumed by it. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the hall's rhythm was interrupted. The floorboards vibrated with the weight of movement outside the walls. A shadow shifted at the threshold of the hall, and the faint murmur of fear passed through those who had once endured countless nights of terror. Beowulf's awareness sharpened, his breath steady, his body ready, but his mind remained calm. This moment, though charged with potential danger, was not chaotic. It was a continuation of the measured rhythm that had guided the night. The contrast between action and stillness, between light and shadow, was precisely what made the story both compelling and soothing in its cadence. Grendel entered Heorot, a figure of darkness and sorrow, moving with the deliberate inevitability of shadow itself. His presence was immense, his strength palpable even in the silent tension before action. Yet in this retelling, the encounter is softened, rendered in a way that emphasizes anticipation and awareness over horror. The creature's movements are rhythmic, almost musical, and the hall's light responds with flickering, reflection, and subtle interaction. In this space, fear is transformed into measured tension, a space for observation and reflection, allowing both hero and listener to engage without anxiety. Beowulf rises, his body calm yet prepared, meeting the shadow with deliberate awareness. The first night in Hear It, marked by the subtle intrusion of Grendel, becomes a meditation on contrast, timing, and presence. The hall, its warmth and light, continues to pulse with life, while the shadow moves in counterpoint, creating a rhythm that guides both hero and listener through the story. Courage is quiet, measured, and steady. Tension is reflective rather than frantic. Anticipation is gentle yet persistent. In this way, the tale unfolds not only as action but as a soothing, immersive experience, perfect for bedtime storytelling. By the end of the first night, the contrast between light and shadow, preparation and encounter, warmth and lurking menace has been established. Beowulf's calm vigilance, the hall's enduring glow, and the subtle rhythm of the night combine to create a sense of expectation, reflection, and quiet triumph even before the confrontation reaches its full intensity. For the listener, this night is a passage into the deeper currents of the story, a moment to settle into the cadence of heroism, shadow, and the enduring interplay of fear and courage. The moment of confrontation between Beowulf and Grendel arrives with a measured inevitability, like the slow turning of a tide, carrying both tension and a strange, reflective calm. The hall of Hear It is quiet now, the air thick with anticipation, though it is not a tense panic but a deliberate pause, a space in which courage and focus can settle into place. Beowulf rises from his place near the fire, his movements deliberate and controlled, aware of the creature that lurks in the shadows. Every muscle, every thought, every breath is aligned with the purpose of this night, to meet the dark presence that has haunted the hall for so long and to restore the rhythm of light, warmth, and fellowship. Grendel, sensing Beowulf's presence, moves with the slow inevitability of shadow. His approach is deliberate, each step measured, his immense form blending into the dark corners of the hall. In imagining him, one must feel the rhythm of his movement, the weight of his solitude, and the echo of pain that drives his violence. He is not merely a monster of brute force. He is a creature of sorrow, loneliness, and deep exile, and in this, he mirrors the hall's contrast. The light of Hear It, vibrant and warm, meets the darkness with a subtle, hypnotic rhythm, establishing a narrative cadence that guides the listener's attention without inducing fear. Beowulf meets Grendel with calm readiness, his senses attuned to the rhythm of the hall, the shifting shadows, and the faint, deliberate movement of the creature. He does not strike rashly or with blind fury. Instead, he allows the tension to unfold slowly, like a river moving under ice, absorbing its energy and preparing to release it with purpose. The hero's hand rests lightly on the hilt of his sword, not in panic but in attentive anticipation. He feels the creature's strength, its inevitability, yet remains centered in the calm certainty of preparation. Grendel lunges, and the first contact is both powerful and controlled, a meeting of two forces in the slow rhythm of narrative. The clash is not chaotic, it is deliberate, each movement echoing like a measured pulse through the hall. Beowulf's strength, honed through years of preparation and reflection, meets the creature's brute power with steady resilience. The story emphasizes control and awareness rather than frantic struggle, allowing the listener to experience intensity without disruption and maintaining the gentle cadence of bedtime storytelling. The battle moves through the hall with careful pacing, a dance of shadow and light. Grendel's claws scrape against timbers, his massive form shifting in the flickering firelight, while Beowulf adapts with fluidity, meeting force with focus, strength with awareness, and anticipation with deliberate action. Each movement is described with attention to rhythm, weight, and presence, allowing the listener to follow the encounter as if watching a slow, immersive performance rather than a jarring confrontation. Even in moments of physical intensity, the narrative remains calm, reflective, and meditative, highlighting heroism as measured courage rather than reckless action. Grendel's frustration grows, mirrored by the slow, inevitable realization that Beowulf is no ordinary warrior. The creature thrashes and struggles, attempting to overpower the hero, yet each movement is met with steady resistance. The hall seems to pulse with the rhythm of their interaction, the firelight casting long shadows that echo the tension and contrast between darkness and light, solitude and community. Even as the fight reaches its climax, the narrative emphasizes the quiet power of awareness and presence, allowing tension to exist without becoming overwhelming. The turning point comes when Beowulf seizes the creature with a calm decisiveness, holding Grendel's arm with steady, unyielding strength. The monster's power, immense though it is met by the hero's preparation, patience, and presence. There is no rush, no chaotic frenzy, only the deliberate alignment of intention and action. The contrast between the monster's shadow and the hero's measured light becomes the central focus, creating a sense of rhythm and balance that soothes even as it captivates. Grendel, realizing his advantage has failed, attempts to flee, but Beowulf's control is absolute. The monster's movements are limited by the hero's careful strategy, his strength balanced with skill, his awareness in harmony with the environment of the hall. This is a confrontation not of brute panic but of thoughtful action, and it is this measured pacing that allows the listener to follow along with calm engagement, feeling the suspense without agitation. The hall itself seems to bear witness, every beam and shadow participating in the gentle interplay of light, strength, and presence. In the final moments of the encounter, Grendel retreats, wounded and diminished, his shadow receding into the darkness from which it emerged. The hall, once again, breathes a quiet sigh of relief, the rhythm of life and fellowship beginning to reassert itself. Beowulf remains steady, attentive to both the safety of the hall's occupants and the subtle lessons of the encounter. That courage is measured, that awareness is essential, and that the interplay of light and shadow, preparation and action, defines the rhythm of heroism. The resolution is not abrupt. It flows naturally, a gentle conclusion to the night's tension that reinforces calm, reflective storytelling. After the encounter, the Danes slowly recover from their long years of fear. Their laughter, initially tentative, returns with careful cadence, blending with the soft crackle of the hearth and the gentle murmur of conversation. The hall glows once more, not simply with firelight, but with the renewed rhythm of fellowship, community, and safety. Beowulf's presence, calm and deliberate, anchors the space, reinforcing the subtle lesson that courage grounded in preparation, patience, and awareness can restore balance even after long-standing shadow. For the listener, this first confrontation serves as both climax and meditation. The intensity of the battle is present but measured, the heroism inspiring yet soothing, and the contrast between darkness and light, threat and calm, continues to guide attention without inducing fear. The narrative demonstrates that even moments of action, when paced and framed thoughtfully, can be immersive and sleep-friendly, carrying the mind gently through suspense and resolution. As the night ends, the hall of Heorot settles into a renewed rhythm, the echoes of battle giving way to calm and reflective presence. Beowulf, vigilant yet serene, has not only confronted the darkness but has restored a sense of balance to the space. The interplay of shadow and light, tension and release, mirrors the larger rhythms of life and myth, teaching both hero and listener the value of measured courage and the gentle persistence of presence. The first night, with all its anticipation, preparation, and action, establishes a template for the story's unfolding. Deliberate pacing, immersive imagery, and reflective calm, all wrapped in the gentle cadence of bedtime storytelling. The first night's encounter left a quiet residue of change in the hall of Heorot. Even as the embers of the hearth burned low, the atmosphere shifted from tense anticipation to a reflective calm. The Danes, who had long endured years of terror under Grendel's shadow, now felt a gentle release, a soft easing of the pressure that had weighed upon them night after night. The hall itself seemed to exhale, as if recognizing the presence of one who had restored balance. Light flickered across polished timbers, casting slow, deliberate shadows that played along the walls, a serene reminder that the darkness, though always lingering, had been held at bay. The warriors and retainers moved cautiously at first, their steps measured, their voices soft with the weight of relief. Some paused near the fire, watching the flames and listening to the quiet hum of recovery. Others checked the structure of the hall and the placement of weapons, mindful of potential threats, yet comforted by the evident outcome of the night's events. Every movement, though deliberate, carried an undercurrent of gentle gratitude for safety restored, for courage demonstrated, and for the continuity of life within these hallowed walls. The rhythm of human presence returned to hear it in a soft, meditative cadence, blending relief, attentiveness, and the quiet celebration of survival. Beowulf, seated near the central hearth, observed these subtle motions with calm awareness. His strength, though remarkable, was accompanied by a quiet attentiveness that allowed him to understand the emotional currents of the hall. He spoke with measured words to Hrothgar and his warriors, acknowledging the courage of those who had endured Grendel's attacks, while also offering reassurance that the menace had been confronted. There was no boasting, no rush to claim glory, only the deliberate communication of presence and competence, a stabilizing force that complemented the slow restoration of calm throughout the hall. Hrothgar, in particular, felt the relief deeply, though his demeanor remained composed. The weight of kingship, long burdened by grief and fear, eased slightly with the knowledge that the threat to hear it had been met. His words to Beowulf were gentle and reflective, acknowledging the hero's skill while emphasizing the virtues of patience, courage, and wisdom. The king's calm presence reinforced the hall's slow return to normalcy, demonstrating to all that leadership, like heroism, is measured not in force alone, but in the careful balance of observation, action, and care. In this aftermath, the Danes began to engage in small, restorative rituals. Some brought fresh wood to the hearth, tending the fire with quiet attention. Others prepared the hall for the coming day, arranging benches, polishing shields, and ensuring that every corner of Heorot reflected both readiness and order. These tasks, though mundane, carried profound meaning in the context of recovery. They were gestures of reclamation, gentle assertions that life, joy, and community could persist even after long nights of fear. The rhythm of these actions echoed through the hall, creating a meditative, almost hypnotic sense of continuity. The softer details of the night became important markers of recovery as well. Outside, the wind carried the subtle scent of marsh and river, mixing with the aroma of food and smoke. The low murmur of water, the distant cries of birds, and the gentle rustling of trees provided a calm counterpoint to the human activity within. These natural elements, often unnoticed, now contributed to the sense of restored equilibrium, reinforcing the connection between the hall's inhabitants and the world beyond. The interplay of light, sound, and scent created a soothing, immersive environment, allowing the Danes and the listener alike to settle into reflection. Stories began to circulate quietly, told in low voices around the embers of the hearth. Warriors recounted the measured courage of Beowulf, emphasizing not only his strength but his calm presence, his awareness, and his careful timing. These narratives were framed not as grandiose boasts, but as gentle affirmations of heroism aligned with wisdom. The subtle storytelling reinforced the hall's restored rhythm, embedding both reflection and inspiration into the listener's mind. Even in the recounting, the pace remained deliberate, allowing imagination and contemplation to merge in a way that soothed and engaged simultaneously. Families, too, experienced a delicate shift in their perception of safety. Children, who had once been hushed or guided gently through corridors of fear, now felt the hall's warmth more fully. Parents, attentive and relieved, allowed themselves to breathe more deeply, observing the soft glow of light, the steadiness of companions, and the presence of a hero who carried both strength and restraint. This subtle shift in mood, calm, secure, reflective, added layers to the story's immersive quality, demonstrating that heroism extends beyond action into the very atmosphere it shapes. As the night stretched toward dawn, Beowulf and his companions remained vigilant, yet the tension that had once defined the hall softened into a steady awareness. The contrast between the previous terror and the present calm underscored the quiet triumph of preparation, courage, and presence. Shadows still lingered, as shadows always do, but their menace was tempered by experience, observation, and the protective rhythm established by the hero. The hall, vibrant with light and life once more, became a space in which reflection, continuity, and gentle anticipation could coexist peacefully. The morning would bring new activity, celebration, counsel, and planning, but the night's aftermath remains a crucial moment in the story. It is a pause, a bridge between tension and the next unfolding, allowing both characters and listener to absorb the subtle lessons of courage, patience, and measured heroism. The hall, restored to warmth and rhythm, stands as a testament to the power of presence and deliberate action, a space in which even the quietest gestures, tending the fire, adjusting a shield, speaking a word of reassurance, carry profound significance. And so, the first night's victory becomes more than a physical triumph. It is a meditation on balance, restoration, and the interplay of shadow and light. Beowulf's calm vigilance, Hrothgar's wise authority, and the Dane's gentle return to routine create a rhythm that comforts, guides, and immerses the listener. In this reflective space, one can feel the weight of the past lifted, the potential of the future acknowledged, and the enduring harmony of courage, wisdom, and community gently settling into place. Even as the Danes settled into the comforting rhythm of Hear It, a quiet tension lingered beneath the warmth of the hall. The victory of the first night had restored balance, yet the shadows of the world remained, subtle and patient. In the marshes beyond the safety of the hall, another presence stirred, one both sorrowful and formidable. Grendel's mother, a creature of shadow and vengeance, moved with deliberate intent, drawn by the loss inflicted upon her kin. Her approach was slow and measured, a careful rhythm that mirrored the quiet patience of the natural world, yet carried the inevitability of impending confrontation. The marshes themselves seemed to respond to her movement. Mist rose in soft veils from the water, curling around reeds and trees in delicate, twisting forms. The wind shifted gently, rustling the surface of ponds and pools, carrying the faint, earthy scent of water and soil. Nightfall embraced the landscape, wrapping it in soft shadows. Yet these were not merely dark. They were layered, textured, alive with movement and depth. Beings such as Grendel's mother are part of this world's rhythm, and her passage through it is both purposeful and hypnotic. For the listener, it is not frightening but compelling, a slow, immersive unfolding of narrative tension. Within Hear It, the warmth of restored fellowship continued, yet the vigilant ear of the night remained attuned to subtle shifts. The Danes, though resting, were aware that darkness is never entirely absent. They could sense the soft vibrations of the earth, the hush that sometimes accompanies presence, the delicate ripple of the world around them. Beowulf, calm and observant, felt the undercurrent of this new threat even before it manifested. His mind, trained in both patience and perception, detected the delicate tension in the air and prepared for the next movement in the story's rhythm. Grendel's mother's motivations were rooted not in mindless malice, but in the slow, inexorable pull of grief and retribution. She is a creature defined by loss, her sorrow shaping her strength, her vengeance tempered by focus and precision. In the storytelling, her character is layered, formidable, yes, yet also tragic, blending the mystery of myth with the reflection of emotion that resonates even in quiet, bedtime narration. The soft cadence of her approach mirrors the deliberate pacing of the story, drawing the listener into a reflective, immersive experience rather than abrupt alarm. Her attack begins subtly, with the disappearance of one of the Danes near the hall, a silent ripple through the group that evokes quiet attention rather than panic. Beowulf notices the shift immediately, his awareness heightened by prior vigilance and reflective preparation. There is no haste in his response, no frantic rush. Instead, a measured assessment unfolds, a careful alignment of strength, strategy, and patience. Each movement, from the hero's positioning to the subtle communication with his companions, is deliberate, reinforcing the calm rhythm even as new tension emerges. The hall itself seems to participate in this unfolding, its walls absorbing and reflecting movement, sound, and intention. Flickering firelight casts elongated, dancing shadows, echoing the presence of the approaching creature without revealing it fully. Every beam, every carving, every corner contributes to the story's immersive quality, creating an environment that feels alive, responsive, and layered. This interplay between setting and narrative heightens attention while maintaining a sense of calm, as the suspense is carried in rhythm and reflection rather than abrupt shock. Beowulf, understanding the new threat, prepares for a deeper confrontation, one that will challenge both his strength and his careful patience. He does not leap blindly into action. Instead, he considers the terrain, the environment, and the subtle signals of the creature. Every detail, the sound of water lapping against the hall's foundations, the shifting shadows of the trees outside, the faint odor of damp earth, becomes part of the hero's awareness. The listener, attuned to this gentle attention to detail, experiences both immersion and calm, following the story with reflective engagement rather than anxiety. As Grendel's mother moves closer, the narrative emphasizes contrasts: light against shadow, stillness against movement, courage against sorrow. Her presence is immense, her power undeniable, yet it is framed in a way that is both compelling and meditative. The threat is real, yet not chaotic. It is deliberate, measured, and rhythmic, mirroring the slow, hypnotic cadence of the natural world. The interplay between hero and foe, between hall and marsh, between light and shadow, establishes a pacing that is immersive and sleep-friendly, allowing the listener to engage fully without disturbance. When she finally breaches the hall's defenses, the story unfolds with the same deliberate rhythm that has carried the narrative so far. Her movements are fluid, her strength evident, yet her presence is accompanied by a reflective weight, a reminder of loss, of vengeance, and of the continuity of life and consequence. Beowulf meets her not with panic but with calm vigilance, his body and mind aligned with the purpose of the night. Each action, each counter, is deliberate, creating a narrative flow that emphasizes awareness, courage, and the gentle rhythm of measured conflict. Even in the height of confrontation, the focus remains on presence and observation. The hall resonates with the interplay of shadow and light, echoing the narrative's careful attention to pacing. Every detail, the shifting flicker of firelight, the subtle ripple of air across the marsh, the hero's steady breathing, contributes to an immersive meditation on courage and vigilance. The listener is guided through the story with calm attention, following the rhythm of action without abrupt fear or alarm, allowing the mind to absorb both tension and reflection simultaneously. By the end of this section, the stage is set for the deeper journey into the marshes, where Beowulf will follow Grendel's mother to her lair. The hall, while still safe for the moment, carries the memory of her presence, and the hero prepares with quiet determination. This emergence of a new threat underscores the story's rhythm. The interplay of light and shadow, the calm deliberation of heroism, and the reflective immersion of mythic storytelling, all designed to maintain a soothing cadence even as narrative tension deepens. The morning following Grendel's mother's emergence carried a sense of quiet purpose across Heorot. While the Danes went about their routines with renewed vigilance, Beowulf's thoughts were already aligned with the journey ahead. The lake, hidden among dense trees and shrouded in mist, awaited him. It was a place both serene and foreboding, a mirror of the natural world's duality, beautiful in its stillness, yet mysterious and alive with the presence of something ancient and powerful. The path to this hidden body of water was not hurried. It unfolded gently, giving time to observe, reflect, and attune oneself to the rhythm of the world. Beowulf and his companions moved through the forest with a calm attentiveness. The ground beneath their feet was soft with moss and fallen leaves, each step cushioned yet purposeful. Birds stirred in the trees, their songs delicate and intermittent, weaving a gentle soundtrack to the hero's progress. Sunlight filtered through branches in thin, golden streams, casting patterned shadows that shifted slowly as the day advanced. Even the whisper of wind through the foliage seemed to echo the cadence of anticipation, a quiet guide marking the journey without intrusion. The path to the lake was lined with subtle markers of life and change. Reeds swayed along the edges of small streams, their movement almost hypnotic. Frogs called softly from hidden pools, and the faint scent of water and damp earth mingled with the aroma of pine and flowering shrubs. These details, seemingly mundane, carried profound weight in the storytelling, grounding the listener in the serenity of the natural environment even as tension subtly built. The approach to the lake is not sudden. It is a gradual immersion, allowing the mind to settle into the rhythm of both hero and landscape. As Beowulf neared the lake, the air became cooler, carrying a soft, damp chill that mingled with the scent of reeds and marsh. Mist rose from the water's surface in gentle ribbons, curling and dispersing in slow, meditative patterns. The lake itself, dark and reflective, seemed to hold the memory of centuries, of creatures, of silence, of the ebb and flow of time. Its surface shimmered subtly in the light, a mirror both inviting and intimidating. The gentle sway of water against the banks created a soothing, almost hypnotic rhythm, guiding both hero and listener toward the hidden depth where Grendel's mother awaited. The approach required careful observation. Beowulf, attuned to the environment, noticed the subtle shifts in water movement, the patterns of mist, and the faint disturbances along the shoreline. These details spoke of presence, of life beneath the surface, and of the quiet intelligence of a creature that had waited patiently. His companions followed with calm awareness, moving deliberately to avoid disturbing the rhythm of the marsh. In this way, the story emphasizes attentiveness and preparation, teaching that courage is as much about observation and patience as it is about strength. The path to the lake was also a reflection of inner preparation. Beowulf's mind moved in quiet anticipation, recalling the lessons of the first encounter with Grendel, considering strategies, and attuning himself to the subtle cues of the environment. The journey is not simply physical. It is a meditation, a blending of movement and reflection that heightens awareness while maintaining calm. For the listener, this allows the imagination to wander through the forest and along the lake, absorbing texture, rhythm, and atmosphere without abrupt tension. The lake itself seemed to breathe with life. Mist shifted with the soft currents, reeds bent gently as if in greeting or warning, and the water shimmered with reflections of trees and sky. Even the occasional ripple across its surface suggested unseen movement below, hinting at Grendel's mother without revealing her fully. This subtlety creates tension without alarm, allowing the listener to remain immersed in the gentle rhythm of the tale. The lake is both a destination and a character, alive with history and potential, inviting reflection and attention. Reaching the water's edge, Beowulf paused. The surface mirrored the pale sky above, a smooth, glass-like plane broken only by the occasional ripple or the slow movement of a fish beneath. His companions waited respectfully, aware of the gravity of the moment, the calm of their hero, and the invisible presence lurking beneath. Beowulf's breath remained steady, his posture relaxed yet alert, embodying the measured courage that defines his character. This pause allows the story to breathe, emphasizing reflection and anticipation over frantic action. The final approach to the lake's center, where the entrance to Grendel's mother's lair awaited, required Beowulf to step into the water, a symbolic transition from the known world to the realm of shadow and mystery. Each step was deliberate, sending ripples across the surface, breaking the stillness in a rhythmic, meditative pattern. The water rose slowly around him, cool and steady, a gentle reminder of the duality of nature, both nurturing and challenging. The mist curled around him, softening the edges of the world, turning each movement into a slow, immersive experience that mirrors the pacing of bedtime storytelling. As he descended toward the lair, the surface of the lake darkened, and the reflections of sky and trees gave way to the shadowed depths below. The rhythm of his breathing, the gentle motion of the water, and the soft sounds of the marsh created a meditative cadence, preparing both hero and listener for the encounter to come. The journey to the lake is not merely a movement through space, but an immersion into atmosphere, reflection, and subtle anticipation, maintaining calm while carrying the narrative forward. Thus, Beowulf's journey to the lake becomes a study in patience, observation, and immersion. Every step, every breath, Every ripple of water contributes to the rhythm of preparation. The hero's movement is deliberate, his awareness total, and the environment is alive with texture and subtle tension. For the listener, the story provides both visual and emotional guidance, a soothing path through nature and myth, preparing the mind for the next chapter while maintaining a gentle, reflective pace. The descent into Grendel's mother's lair was a passage into another world, one defined by stillness, shadow, and the gentle rhythm of water. The lake, which had appeared serene and reflective on the surface, now enveloped Beowulf in a liquid cocoon of quiet anticipation. Each movement of his body created subtle ripples, small distortions in the otherwise placid environment. The mist above seemed to follow him, curling and swirling as if reluctant to leave the surface, giving the journey a hypnotic, immersive quality. For the listener, this underwater approach is both thrilling and soothing, a slow, reflective immersion into mythic space without abrupt alarm. The light dimmed as Beowulf submerged deeper, and the sounds of the marsh faded into a soft, muffled resonance. Air and water shifted together, creating a slow, deliberate rhythm that guided each motion. Beowulf felt the pressure of the water around him, steady and embracing, as if the lake itself was a living presence, part of the story as much as the hero and the creature he sought. The gentle sway of currents and the muted colors of submerged plants created a visual tapestry that both grounded and mesmerized the mind, allowing the listener to drift into the narrative's soothing cadence. Grendel's mother waited in the shadows of the underwater cave, her form both massive and fluid, moving with deliberate grace that mirrored the calm rhythm of the environment. She is not merely a monster of force. She is a creature shaped by sorrow and vengeance, her power intertwined with the stillness of her lair. The water amplifies her presence, reflecting light and shadow in slow, undulating patterns that communicate both danger and majesty. The hero's awareness of these qualities allows the story to remain immersive and reflective, emphasizing measured courage rather than chaotic confrontation. Beowulf approached carefully, noting the subtle currents and the way the creature's movements disturbed the water around her. Every detail, the flash of a fin-like limb, the ripple of a shadow across the cave wall, the slow rise of bubbles from her breath, was observed with deliberate attention. He understood that this battle required more than strength. It demanded patience, perception, and the ability to move with the rhythm of the environment. The listener, guided through these details, experiences tension in a gentle, meditative way, absorbed into the story rather than startled by it. The first encounter beneath the water was a careful test of strength and awareness. Grendel's mother lunged with sudden power, yet the impact was framed within the slow, controlled rhythm of the narrative. Beowulf met her with deliberate readiness, aligning his movements with the currents and the ebb of the underwater space. Each strike, each block, each subtle adjustment of position unfolded with careful pacing, creating a sense of flowing tension rather than chaotic struggle. The hallmarks of heroism, strength, courage, and presence, are demonstrated in measured, almost hypnotic cadence. The cave itself became part of the story's rhythm. Stalactites hung overhead, soft light filtering through cracks, casting elongated patterns on the walls. The rocky floor and scattered debris provided both obstacles and subtle guidance, emphasizing the hero's careful attention to the environment. Every ripple of water and reflection of light contributed to the immersive atmosphere, allowing the listener to feel both the spatial depth and the reflective calm of Beowulf's measured actions. Even in the height of conflict, the pace remained slow and deliberate, aligning perfectly with the meditative tone of sleep-friendly storytelling. Grendel's mother pressed forward with relentless focus, yet Beowulf's calm vigilance allowed him to anticipate her movements. The narrative emphasizes observation and adaptation rather than reckless aggression. Every dodge, block, and counterstrike is described with attention to weight, rhythm, and reflection, maintaining the immersive quality while reinforcing the quiet intensity of the encounter. The water becomes a character in itself, flowing with and against the hero and monster, shaping the experience in a gentle yet compelling way. As the confrontation progresses, Beowulf discovers the key to victory, the ancient sword hanging on the cave wall, left perhaps by fate or forgotten by time. Its weight in his hands, the curve of the blade, and the glint of reflective metal all contribute to the meditative rhythm of the narrative. With careful precision, he swings, the motion deliberate and resonant, and strikes the creature decisively. The impact reverberates through the water in gentle pulses, echoing along the cave walls, creating a satisfying resolution that is both thrilling and soothing. Grendel's mother, subdued yet majestic, retreats into the shadows for the final moment. The lair's calm returns gradually, with the gentle rise and fall of water and the soft, muted light filtering through cracks above. Beowulf, attentive to his surroundings, ensures that no threat remains immediate, observing the subtle shifts in the environment as the tension slowly releases. The narrative lingers here, emphasizing reflection, awareness, and the continuity of action and consequence, reinforcing a sense of calm resolution even within the climactic moment. Emerging from the water, Beowulf carries the weight of both victory and reflection. The lake, once still and mysterious, now mirrors the sky above, its surface disturbed only by gentle ripples that mark the passing of the encounter. His companions greet him quietly, respecting both the hero's strength and the reflective pause that follows the struggle. The journey back to hear it is framed in a slow, meditative rhythm, allowing the listener to absorb the atmosphere of triumph, relief, and calm after the controlled intensity of underwater battle. The story of this battle, framed with deliberate pacing and immersive sensory detail, demonstrates that even moments of high action can remain soothing when described with attention to rhythm, observation, and reflective presence. Shadows, light, water, and the hero's careful awareness create a narrative space where suspense and calm coexist, allowing the listener to engage fully while settling into the gentle cadence of bedtime storytelling. By the end of this section, Beowulf has not only defeated Grendel's mother, but has reinforced the rhythm of heroism, reflection, and presence. The lair, the lake, and the underwater journey serve as both physical and metaphorical spaces of preparation, challenge, and meditation. The listener, carried through the calm intensity of the encounter, emerges with a sense of immersion, satisfaction, and readiness for the story's continuation. The journey back to hear it began with a sense of quiet triumph, a soft exhalation of relief that traveled with Beowulf and his companions. The lake, once mysterious and foreboding, now lay behind them, its surface calm and reflective, disturbed only by the gentle ripples marking their departure. The water carried a subtle fragrance of earth and moss, a lingering reminder of the lair below, while the mist above swirled slowly in delicate patterns, as if bidding farewell to the hero who had ventured into its shadowy depths. Every step toward the hall was deliberate, calm, and measured, reflecting both the physical exertion of the journey and the reflective presence that defines Beowulf's character. The forest that surrounded the lake seemed to acknowledge their passage. Trees swayed gently in the breeze, their leaves whispering soft sounds that harmonized with the rhythm of their footsteps. Birds, cautious at first, resumed their melodic calls, creating a serene, natural soundtrack for the journey. Even the small animals of the forest appeared to move with careful deliberation, a quiet accompaniment to the steady, meditative pace of Beowulf and his companions. The world, in all its subtle activity, provided both a backdrop and a reflection of the hero's calm determination, reinforcing the soothing cadence of the story for the listener. The treasure from the lair, carefully secured, glimmered with quiet promise in Beowulf's possession. It was a reminder not of greed, but of justice, courage, and the restoration of balance. Each piece, intricately wrought and subtly glowing, reflected the dim light of the forest and the soft shimmer of water droplets clinging to moss and reeds. This quiet detail emphasizes the measured reward of heroism, framed not as brash triumph, but as a calm, reflective acknowledgement of effort and courage. For the listener, the imagery is immersive yet relaxing, grounding the mind in texture, light, and the gentle narrative rhythm. As they moved closer to hear it, the signs of human life became more pronounced. Smoke from morning fires rose in thin, steady columns, mingling with the fresh scent of dew and earth. Sounds of conversation, gentle and unhurried, reached the travelers, a reminder of community, continuity, and safety. The hall's presence, visible now between the trees, radiated both warmth and endurance, a symbol of civilization and fellowship restored. The contrast between the dark, reflective lake behind and the welcoming glow of Heorot ahead reinforced the narrative's soothing balance of tension and release. Upon approaching the hall, the Danes noticed the returning group. Wulfgar and other retainers stood at the periphery, observing with quiet admiration and cautious curiosity. Their attention was not frantic but measured, reflecting both the respect for Beowulf's deeds and the recognition of the careful timing that defined his actions. Each step, each movement, carried an unspoken weight, the gravity of past events tempered by the calm rhythm of restoration. Beowulf's demeanor, serene and confident, mirrored the slow pulse of the hall itself, harmonizing with the space and its people. Entering Heorot once more, the warmth of the hearth welcomed the travelers. Flames flickered gently across polished timbers, dancing on shields and ornaments that adorned the hall. The ambient sounds of footsteps, hushed conversation, and the occasional clink of utensils blended into a soothing rhythm, echoing the measured movements of Beowulf and his companions. The hall, resilient and enduring, seemed to respond to their return, the air itself infused with a gentle sense of relief and continuity. This return is not merely physical. It is a passage into renewed calm, reflection, and immersive presence. Hrothgar greeted Beowulf with a composed, gentle authority, his words both appreciative and contemplative. He spoke of courage, loyalty, and the restoration of balance to Heorot, emphasizing measured reflection over exuberant celebration. The king's calm demeanor set the tone for the hall, reinforcing the atmosphere of stability and gentle triumph. Warriors and retainers listened attentively, absorbing both the narrative of victory and the subtle lesson of patience and careful action. The tone remained consistent, immersive, reflective, and soothing, suitable for a listener settling into the rhythm of the story. The treasure was laid before Hrothgar with deliberate care. Its intricate craftsmanship, subtle glow, and quiet weight became a symbol of restoration rather than conquest. The scene emphasized observation, respect, and acknowledgement, rather than boastfulness or urgency. Every detail, from the shimmer of metal to the soft reflections of firelight, contributed to the immersive quality of the narrative. Listeners are guided to notice the calm rhythm of the hall, the reflective presence of heroism, and the gentle interplay of light and shadow, maintaining a soothing bedtime cadence even amidst narrative climax. The Danes slowly resumed their routines, now suffused with relief and gentle curiosity. Conversations returned to a soft, measured tone, laughter punctuated by reflective silence, and the rhythm of life resumed its slow, comforting pace. The hall itself, enduring and luminous, provided a sense of continuity, grounding both hero and listener in the narrative's immersive environment. Beowulf, observing the restored calm, allowed a moment of reflection, absorbing both the physical journey and the symbolic significance of victory. Even the natural world seemed to participate in this quiet return. The forest beyond the hall swayed gently in the breeze. Birds sang with renewed freedom, and sunlight filtered through leaves in soft, irregular patterns. The contrast between the shadows of the lake and the light of Heorot reinforced the story's immersive rhythm, reminding the listener of the enduring interplay between challenge and safety, shadow and illumination, tension and calm. The journey back, though concluding, is rich with meditative detail, reinforcing the pacing and reflective tone of the narrative. Thus, Beowulf's return to Heorot embodies both physical accomplishment and reflective presence. The hall, vibrant with renewed warmth, stands as a testament to the quiet heroism that values observation, patience, and measured action. The treasure, the calm of the Danes, and the enduring rhythm of the hall all contribute to an immersive, sleep-friendly narrative experience. For the listener, this section is a gentle transition, allowing the mind to settle into the restorative arc of the story while remaining attentive to the subtle rhythms of myth, heroism, and environment. With Grendel and his mother defeated, Heorot embraced a slow, deliberate return to celebration, a rhythm that blended relief with reflection. The hall, once heavy with the shadows of fear, now hummed with quiet energy, the kind that comes not from frantic excitement, but from measured awareness of triumph and safety. Fires burned steadily in the hearths, casting a soft, flickering glow across the polished timber, illuminating shields, ornaments, and the intricate carvings that told stories of past deeds. The warmth of the hall mirrored the warmth of its people, and the gentle murmur of conversation created a soothing, immersive cadence that filled the space without overwhelming the senses. Beowulf, seated near Hrothgar, observed the scene with calm attentiveness. The hero's presence grounded the hall, a steady center around which the activities of recovery and celebration revolved. Warriors and retainers moved carefully, carrying trays of food or adjusting benches, their actions deliberate yet fluid. There was no rush, no clamor for attention, only a shared rhythm of cooperative movement and quiet acknowledgement. Even small gestures, the placement of a cup, the soft clink of utensils, a gentle nod of gratitude, contributed to the immersive atmosphere, reinforcing the gentle tempo of the evening. Hrothgar addressed the hall with measured words, his voice calm, resonant, and imbued with wisdom earned through years of kingship. He spoke not only of victory, but of the lessons embedded in courage, patience, and reflection. Strength tempered by wisdom, he said softly, is the shield that protects both the hall and the heart. His message, delivered without flourish or urgency, resonated with every listener, establishing a reflective rhythm that complemented the celebratory atmosphere. The Danes absorbed his words with attentive calm, the subtle cadence of his speech harmonizing with the flicker of firelight and the gentle hum of conversation. Music and song, once instruments of loud fanfare, were now slow and meditative, performed with a deliberate, hypnotic rhythm. Harps strummed softly, their tones weaving through the warmth of the hall like ribbons of light. Singers recounted tales of heroes past, of deeds both small and grand, their voices calm, measured, and immersive. Each note and lyric contributed to the gentle pulse of the hall, reinforcing a reflective mood while providing a soothing auditory backdrop for the listener. Even as stories of battles were told, the emphasis remained on courage, strategy, and reflection rather than chaotic drama. The feast itself, though modest in comparison to the grandeur of Heorot's past, reflected the hall's restored harmony. Platters of roasted meat, bread, and fruits were shared slowly, deliberately, and with mindfulness. Each bite, each sip of mead, became part of the narrative rhythm, a tactile reflection of recovery and continuity. Companionship was celebrated not through noise or exuberance, but through quiet acknowledgement of one another's presence and the shared sense of relief that followed the defeat of Grendel and his mother. The hall's atmosphere, rich with scent, warmth, and soft conversation, wrapped around the hero and the listener alike, creating a soothing, immersive environment. Beowulf's companions, reflecting on the journey and its trials, moved with gentle attentiveness, discussing moments of the battle in hushed tones. Their reflections emphasized strategy, courage, and observation, reinforcing the calm and measured pacing of the story. Even the subtle interplay of shadows cast by the firelight contributed to the immersive quality, highlighting the contrast between past danger and present safety, between tension and reflective calm. The listener is guided through these layers of narrative with a sense of gentle anticipation, absorbed into the hall's rhythm without alarm. Hrothgar, in conversation with Beowulf, shared personal reflections that deepened the contemplative mood. He spoke of leadership, the responsibilities of strength, and the importance of tempering action with wisdom. His words were not loud proclamations, but soft, thoughtful guidance, like a gentle stream flowing through the narrative. Beowulf listened, not in haste, but with calm attentiveness, absorbing the lessons of both triumph and restraint. This exchange reinforced the reflective cadence of the evening, allowing the listener to engage intellectually and emotionally while remaining immersed in the story's soothing atmosphere. The celebration extended beyond food and conversation. Craftsmen polished shields and swords, the rhythmic movement of cloth and metal adding a tactile dimension to the hall's gentle energy. Children, guided by attentive adults, began to explore the warmth of the space with quiet curiosity, their small movements and hushed giggles contributing to the hall's immersive life. Even minor details, the soft shuffle of feet, the faint echo of a chair against the floor, the slow flicker of shadows across walls, added depth to the reflective rhythm, grounding the listener in a layered, sensory experience. In this moment, the Hall of Hear It exemplified a balance between celebration and meditation. Triumph had been achieved, yet there was no rush to abandon reflection. The victory over Grendel and his mother was honored through presence, observation, and attentiveness, not through chaos or disorder. This approach reinforced the story's calm, immersive quality, emphasizing rhythm, atmosphere, and sensory engagement over sudden excitement. The listener, following the slow pulses of light, sound, and conversation, experiences both relief and contemplation, a combination ideal for bedtime storytelling. As the evening wore on, the hall gradually settled into a soothing cadence. Conversation slowed, laughter softened, and the fire's glow became steady and meditative. Warriors reclined with contentment, Hrothgar reflected quietly, and Beowulf remained a calm, centered presence. The interplay of light and shadow, sound and silence, movement and stillness created a harmonious environment that gently guided the listener toward reflection and rest. The celebration was not a distraction but a continuation of the story's immersive rhythm, integrating triumph, wisdom, and calm into a coherent, soothing experience. By the end of the evening, Hear It had regained its sense of equilibrium. The hall, its occupants, and the surrounding environment existed in a delicate, reflective balance, emphasizing continuity, observation, and mindful engagement. Beowulf's role in this restored rhythm, both heroic and contemplative, underscored the story's meditation on courage, strategy, and measured action. The listener, immersed in this gentle cadence, is carried through victory, reflection, and calm, fully engaged yet soothed by the deliberate pacing and immersive detail. As the years passed, Beowulf's life took on a rhythm of quiet reflection, measured action, and careful leadership. He returned to his homeland, carrying not only the treasure and stories of triumph, but also the wisdom gained from battles fought and victories won. The echoes of Hear It, the warmth of the hall, and the calm attentiveness of Hrothgar lingered in his memory, a gentle reminder that heroism is measured not only in deeds but in presence, patience, and the capacity to observe the world with clarity. The pace of his later life mirrored the gentle rhythm of those stories, slow, deliberate, and reflective, allowing both hero and listener to contemplate the passage of time with calm immersion. Beowulf's reign as a king was characterized by thoughtful governance and the quiet strength of example. He understood that leadership, like heroism, required balance. Courage tempered with wisdom, action guided by patience, and strength exercised with care. The people he ruled felt this presence, not through fear or coercion, but through the gentle confidence and measured attention of their sovereign. The narrative emphasizes the hero's reflective mindset, creating a meditative cadence that draws the listener into the depth of his character without creating tension or abrupt excitement. The lands he governed flourished under steady guidance. Fields yielded abundant harvests, forests remained managed yet wild in beauty, and rivers flowed with serene continuity. Villages and towns echoed with gentle activity, the soft clatter of tools, the rhythmic murmur of conversation, the measured passage of animals and water through the landscape. These natural and human rhythms mirrored Beowulf's calm, deliberate approach to life, creating a narrative space in which the listener can appreciate both heroism and harmony. Even moments of quiet, such as walking through his lands or observing the movement of clouds across the sky, carry reflective weight and gentle meditation. Though his deeds at Hear It were celebrated far and wide, Beowulf's reflections were not on fame or glory, but on responsibility, legacy, and the lessons of life tempered by experience. He recalled the measured courage required to confront Grendel, the patient observation needed to face Grendel's mother, and the rhythm of calm attentiveness that guided him through both challenges. These recollections, gentle and immersive, allow the listener to follow the inner life of the hero, experiencing suspense and triumph in reflective, soothing terms rather than abrupt or chaotic action. Over time, stories of Beowulf's earlier adventures were recounted around fires, in halls, and beside quiet streams. Yet these narratives emphasized more than physical triumphs. They highlighted patience, careful preparation, and the reflective presence that had ensured success. Minstrels and storytellers, aware of the power of measured pace, told tales that lingered in the mind, drawing attention to rhythm, imagery, and quiet heroism. The listener, absorbed in these stories, experiences both engagement and calm, guided through mythic space with immersive detail that encourages relaxation rather than tension. Even in solitude, Beowulf's mind remained attuned to the lessons of vigilance and reflection. He walked along hillsides and riverbanks, feeling the pulse of the natural world, the sway of trees, the soft rise and fall of wind over grass, the gentle ripple of water against rocks. These moments, though unremarkable in action, were profound in presence, allowing him to contemplate both the past and the responsibilities of the future. The narrative emphasizes the meditative quality of attention, teaching that heroism extends beyond battles and victories into the ongoing rhythm of awareness, patience, and engagement with life. In his later years, Beowulf faced challenges that required not only strength, but measured courage and wisdom. Conflicts arose with neighboring kingdoms or threats emerged from distant lands, yet the hero's approach was always deliberate and reflective. He assessed the landscape, considered the people affected, and acted with a balance that minimized harm while restoring equilibrium. The pacing of these events, described in calm, deliberate terms, reinforces the story's immersive rhythm, allowing the listener to experience suspense, strategy, and resolution without abrupt tension. The legacy of Beowulf's life became a reflection of continuity, balance, and thoughtful action. He mentored younger warriors, guiding them through the subtleties of observation, patience, and presence. He instructed them in the ways of measured courage, emphasizing that strength alone is insufficient. The rhythm of careful thought, reflection, and awareness must accompany physical power. These teachings, framed as quiet conversations and deliberate guidance, create a gentle, immersive cadence that the listener can follow with both engagement and relaxation. Even as age touched him, Beowulf remained attentive to the natural world. He observed the changing seasons with quiet reflection, the soft bloom of spring, the gentle warmth of summer, the muted colors of autumn, and the stillness of winter. Each cycle became a meditation, a rhythm of life that paralleled the hero's internal journey. These observations, rich with sensory detail, allow the listener to engage with the passage of time gently, absorbing the beauty of natural cycles while remaining immersed in the calm pacing of the narrative. As Beowulf approached the later stages of his life, the culmination of experience, reflection, and measured action became evident not in fanfare, but in the quiet assurance of stability and order. His lands thrived, his people prospered, and his legacy, built on careful observation, courage tempered by wisdom, and immersive presence, endured. The rhythm of his story, one of calm deliberation, attentive awareness, and reflective heroism, provides a gentle, immersive journey for the listener, blending myth, history, and bedtime-friendly meditation. The years of Beowulf's later life, filled with thoughtful governance, reflection, and measured action, form a bridge between the excitement of youthful heroism and the serene wisdom of experience. The listener, guided through each deliberate step, gentle observation, and reflective moment, can appreciate both the narrative's depth and its calming cadence. The story emphasizes that heroism is a lifelong rhythm, not a single event, and that courage, patience, and presence can shape both the world and the mind in quiet, enduring ways. In the later years of Beowulf's reign, a subtle unease began to stir within the land. The seasons had passed in measured rhythm, the forests and rivers flourishing under his careful watch, yet whispers of a new threat reached the king. A dragon, ancient and restless, had awakened in a distant hill, its presence marked by the slow, ominous tremor of earth and the occasional wisp of smoke curling from hidden lairs. Unlike Grendel or his mother, this foe was a creature of both awe and inevitability, a force not merely of malice but of the natural order's shadowed side. Beowulf, though older, did not hesitate. His courage remained measured, his attention deliberate, and his awareness attuned to the subtle rhythm of challenge and preparation. The king's approach to this final confrontation was shaped by experience, reflection, and calm observation. He did not rush into the dragon's lair, nor did he rely solely on brute strength. Every movement was deliberate, every plan considered with the weight of years and the wisdom gained through prior encounters. The journey to the hill, though physically demanding, unfolded in a meditative rhythm. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying scents of fire and earth, while shadows shifted gently across the ground, creating an immersive, almost hypnotic environment that prepared both hero and listener for the coming challenge. As Beowulf approached the dragon's domain, the earth beneath him trembled subtly, a reminder of the creature's immense power. Smoke rose in thin, curling tendrils, blending with the mist of the morning and the soft light of dawn. Each step forward was taken with attentive caution, the rhythm of his movement harmonizing with the slow pulse of the landscape. Companions who followed him did so with respect and careful observation, understanding the gravity of the encounter and the measured courage required to face a foe so formidable. The narrative, through its detailed description of environment and movement, maintains a calm, immersive cadence, guiding the listener gently into the tension of the battle. The dragon emerged gradually, a towering presence of scale and shadow. Its eyes glimmered with both ancient intelligence and instinctual fury, and its movements, though deliberate, carried undeniable menace. Beowulf observed carefully, noting the pattern of the creature's breathing, the subtle shift of muscles beneath scales, and the rhythm of its tail against the earth. This attention to detail, slow and deliberate, frames the encounter not as chaotic violence, but as a reflective exercise in courage, awareness, and measured action. The listener is drawn into the tension without alarm, absorbed in the narrative's calm, rhythmic pacing. The first clash of hero and dragon was a dance of force and observation. Beowulf moved with deliberate precision, parrying flames and adjusting his stance to the flow of the dragon's movements. Each swing of sword and shield was calculated, each step measured, and each breath aligned with the rhythm of the encounter. The dragon's fire, though fearsome, was described in a way that emphasizes pattern, texture, and light rather than sudden shock, allowing the listener to experience tension in a controlled, immersive manner. Even the roar of the dragon carried a slow, resonant cadence, echoing through the hills like a powerful yet rhythmic drumbeat. Beowulf's companions, though brave, were reminded of the necessity of caution and observation. The king's calm presence provided a steady anchor in the face of danger, demonstrating that measured courage and strategic awareness are as essential as raw strength. Each movement, from stepping aside to striking at a vulnerable point, emphasized the interplay of patience and power. The battle unfolded in a hypnotic rhythm, moments of stillness punctuated by deliberate action, breaths taken between strikes, and careful alignment of body and mind with the environment and the foe. The turning point came when Beowulf, recognizing the limits of his strength and the dragon's relentless power, relied upon both timing and a singular, precise strike. Drawing upon the accumulated wisdom of his life and battles past, he struck with deliberate force, aiming for the creature's most vulnerable spot. The impact, though climactic, was framed in measured detail. The way scales shifted, the rise of heat in the surrounding air, the subtle tremor that ran through the earth. The narrative remains calm, immersive, and reflective, allowing the listener to absorb both the drama and the rhythm of heroism without disruption. Even as the dragon fell, the aftermath required careful attention. Beowulf, gravely wounded in the encounter, moved with deliberate care, observing the environment, his companions, and the balance between life and consequence. The narrative emphasizes reflection, presence, and the gentle rhythm of recovery and transition, underscoring that heroism includes awareness of limits, the consequences of action, and the maintenance of composure in the face of finality. The listener experiences both resolution and contemplation, drawn into a meditative engagement with the story. Returning to the hall, Beowulf's companions carried the dragon's treasure, a reminder of both triumph and mortality. The king's wounds, though serious, were treated with calm attentiveness, reflecting the measured care that had defined his life and leadership. The hall, illuminated by steady firelight, welcomed him with reflective warmth. Conversations were hushed, actions deliberate, and the atmosphere infused with both awe and tranquility. The balance of triumph, reflection, and gentle presence created an immersive, calming rhythm for the listener, preparing the mind for the story's final chapter. Beowulf's final battle, framed through careful observation, measured courage, and reflective pacing, exemplifies the culmination of a life lived in harmony with both action and contemplation. The dragon, though formidable and fearsome, becomes a part of the narrative's meditative rhythm, its presence serving to highlight heroism tempered by wisdom, patience, and awareness. For the listener, the encounter is immersive without alarm, thrilling without chaos, and reflective without abrupt tension. As the evening settled over the hall, the tale of Beowulf's last battle became a gentle meditation on mortality, courage, and the continuity of life and legacy. The interplay of light and shadow, strength and restraint, action and observation, created a narrative cadence both immersive and soothing. Listeners could rest within the rhythm of the story, following the hero through the measured challenges of his final confrontation while absorbing lessons of reflection, courage, and calm presence. The Hall of Heorot, once vibrant with tales of Grendel and his mother, now held the quiet memory of Beowulf's final deeds. His journey, from youthful hero to wise king, had reached its serene yet profound conclusion. The dragon, vanquished but leaving its mark, reminded all that life's challenges are both inevitable and transformative. Beowulf's companions, though saddened by the passing of their leader, moved with calm reverence, carrying the lessons of courage, patience, and presence into their daily lives. The narrative of his life, told gently and reflectively, offers the listener a meditative rhythm, blending triumph with contemplation, action with reflection. The landscape of his legacy was as tangible as the treasures he brought back from distant encounters. Mountains, rivers, forests, and halls echoed with the quiet stories of his deeds, each detail infused with subtle texture. The shimmer of sunlight on polished armor, the gentle rustle of leaves in a calm breeze, the soft murmur of streams reflecting the sky. These sensory details, described with deliberate attention, provide a soothing, immersive backdrop for the listener, emphasizing continuity, beauty, and the enduring impact of thoughtful action. The rhythm of nature mirrored the rhythm of Beowulf's life, reinforcing the connection between heroism, observation, and harmony with the world. In the hall, Hrothgar's words of wisdom lingered like soft echoes, emphasizing that true greatness resides not merely in strength, but in measured courage, thoughtful leadership, and the capacity for reflection. He spoke of the importance of observing the world, understanding its rhythms, and responding with deliberate care. The Danes, as well as Beowulf's own people, internalized these lessons, allowing them to guide their actions, relationships, and interactions with the natural and human worlds. This gentle moral framework, woven into the storytelling, maintains the calm, immersive tone, offering the listener guidance without alarm or abrupt resolution. Beowulf's companions and successors carried forward the traditions he had established. Young warriors were trained not only in combat, but in observation, patience, and the delicate balance between strength and reflection. The treasures he recovered became symbols of thoughtful heroism rather than greed or ostentation, each piece telling a quiet story of courage, strategy, and measured presence. In recounting these tales, the narrative encourages the listener to engage with the values of observation, awareness, and calm resilience, creating a soothing rhythm that mirrors the hero's life. Even as time passed, the memory of Beowulf's deeds lived in the natural world. Forests, rivers, and hills bore silent witness to his journeys, while birdsong, flowing streams, and rustling leaves carried the echo of his calm attentiveness and reflective courage. The story emphasizes that legacy is not only measured in monuments or treasures, but in the subtle rhythms and patterns left in the world, the quiet influences that shape communities and guide future generations. Listeners, immersed in these layered details, are drawn into a gentle meditation on continuity, influence, and presence. The reflective aspect of Beowulf's story is heightened by the slow passage of seasons. Spring's renewal, summer's warmth, autumn's harvest, and winter's stillness all mirror stages of life, providing context for understanding heroism, mortality, and memory. Each season becomes a gentle guide, teaching the listener to observe, reflect, and appreciate the rhythm of existence. Beowulf's life, framed by these cycles, offers a template for understanding courage not as fleeting heroics, but as a continuous, measured practice of presence and attention. Even the hall itself, in its quiet, posthumous energy, embodied the values Beowulf had instilled. Here it remained a space of reflection, observation, and calm continuity. The flicker of firelight across shields, the soft murmur of conversation, and the rhythmic movement of people attending to daily routines all reinforced the gentle cadence of the story. Here, the narrative emphasizes that the influence of a hero extends beyond their physical presence. It resides in the enduring atmosphere of respect, attentiveness, and reflective engagement with the world. The treasures Beowulf left behind, once gleaming with the immediacy of conquest, now reflected a deeper truth, the harmony of achievement and reflection. Each artifact carried stories not only of battles won, but of patience, observation, and the deliberate pacing of action. Their presence in the hall, handled with care and respect, created a subtle yet immersive reminder of the hero's philosophy. Courage must be tempered by awareness, strength guided by wisdom, and action aligned with the natural rhythm of the world. In recounting his final moments, the story emphasizes serenity and acceptance. Beowulf faced mortality with the same deliberate courage that had marked his life, neither hastening nor resisting, but moving with measured attention to the balance of life, legacy, and the environment around him. This framing, gentle and reflective, allows the listener to engage with the inevitability of endings without alarm, guided instead by the calm cadence of narrative, observation, and presence. As the tale concludes, the hall of Heorot and the lands surrounding it settle into a rhythmic tranquility. Shadows lengthen, flames flicker gently, and the natural world pulses with a subtle continuity that echoes Beowulf's life. Birds sing softly in the morning, streams ripple with quiet resonance, and the trees sway in a measured, hypnotic rhythm. The story invites the listener to follow this cadence, absorbing the narrative in layers of reflection, calm, and immersive presence. Beowulf's legacy, therefore, is not solely in feats of strength or moments of daring, but in the enduring rhythm of awareness, observation, and thoughtful action. His life teaches that heroism is an ongoing practice, a quiet integration of courage, patience, and reflection. The listener, enveloped in this calm, layered narrative, emerges with a sense of closure, satisfaction, and meditative immersion, ready to drift into the quiet reflection that bedtime storytelling is meant to provide. Thus, the story of Beowulf concludes not with abrupt fanfare, but with serene reflection, a gentle meditation on life, courage, and enduring influence. The interplay of light and shadow, activity and stillness, action and observation leaves the listener calm, engaged, and immersed in the rhythm of myth, history, and timeless storytelling. As the echoes of Beowulf's life settled across the lands he had protected, a gentle stillness enveloped both the hall of Heorot and the natural world beyond. The forests whispered with soft breezes, streams moved with steady, unhurried currents, and the hills, once marked by the tremors of dragon fire, now lay quiet beneath a sky brushed with warm, fading light. The story, though reaching its conclusion, lingered in this serene rhythm, allowing the listener to absorb the weight of heroism and the calm reflection of legacy. There was a sense that while Beowulf himself had passed, the lessons, presence, and quiet influence of his life continued to ripple gently across the world. This final chapter emphasizes the enduring impact of thoughtful action. Beowulf's life, from youthful vigor to seasoned wisdom, demonstrated a balance between courage and contemplation, between physical prowess and reflective observation. His victories, both against Grendel and the dragon, were not simply events to be recounted with excitement, but lessons woven into the tapestry of his character. The treasures he brought, the halls he safeguarded, and the people he guided all became subtle markers of influence, reminders that heroism is as much about presence, patience, and mindfulness as it is about strength. The listener, immersed in these ideas, experiences a gentle, meditative rhythm that soothes while inspiring reflection. The lands themselves seemed to honor Beowulf's memory. Forests swayed gently in the breeze, sunlight filtered softly through leaves, and streams rippled over stones with a slow, hypnotic cadence. Birds called quietly from hidden branches, and even the wind seemed to follow a deliberate, measured rhythm. These environmental cues, described in layered sensory detail, reinforced the story's immersive qualities, encouraging listeners to feel the balance and continuity of the world. The hero's life and deeds are thus mirrored in the natural world, creating a seamless blend of narrative and environment, tension and calm. Within the Hall of Heorot, Beowulf's legacy continued to shape the lives of those who remained. Warriors and companions carried the memory of his careful courage, his measured judgment, and his reflective leadership into their own actions. Songs, tales, and quiet conversations recounted his deeds not with brashness, but with attentive respect, focusing on strategy, observation, and the rhythm of mindful heroism. Each retelling, deliberate and immersive, added another layer to the calm cadence of the story, allowing the listener to absorb both the narrative and the values it conveys in a soothing, meditative way. Even the treasures that Beowulf had recovered took on a symbolic resonance. They were no longer merely objects of wealth or power, but representations of courage, preparation, and the harmony of action and reflection. Each gleaming piece of gold, each carefully wrought artifact, became a visual reminder of the hero's presence and the lessons embedded in his life. The soft reflections of firelight on these objects, described with deliberate attention, create a calming, immersive sensory experience for the listener, emphasizing continuity, awareness, and balance. The story concludes with reflection on the cyclical nature of life. Seasons continued to pass over the lands once guarded by Beowulf. Spring brought renewal and gentle growth, summer warmth and steady vitality, autumn the harvest of careful planning, and winter the stillness and introspection that prepare for new beginnings. These natural rhythms mirror the hero's journey, providing a calm structure that allows the listener to absorb lessons of courage, patience, and presence. The narrative thus closes not with abrupt finality, but with a gentle, meditative sense of continuity and reflection. In his absence, the values Beowulf embodied became a living rhythm within the communities he had influenced. Leaders and warriors acted with deliberation, observing the world carefully and tempering strength with awareness. The listener, guided through these reflections, experiences a subtle but profound immersion into the philosophy underlying the hero's life. Courage is portrayed not as reckless action but as measured presence. Leadership is not domination but attentive stewardship. Victory is not merely conquest but the restoration of balance. The final moments of the story dwell on the calm endurance of memory and legacy. The halls, the forests, and the rivers carry echoes of Beowulf's actions, each moment of his life leaving a gentle imprint. Even in quiet reflection, the hero's influence remains palpable, a rhythm that guides thought, behavior, and understanding of both the world and the stories that shape it. Listeners are invited to feel this continuity, absorbing the meditative cadence that carries the story to its serene conclusion. As night falls over Heorot and the surrounding lands, the world itself seems to pause, inviting contemplation. Stars emerge slowly in the deepening sky, their light reflected softly in rivers and streams. The breeze moves with subtle consistency, rustling leaves in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. This imagery reinforces the sense of calm, closure, and reflective peace, allowing the listener to drift naturally toward rest while remaining fully immersed in the gentle pulse of the narrative. Thus, Beowulf's story ends not with clamor or sudden finality, but with a deliberate, measured rhythm. The hero's life, deeds, and legacy continue through the environment, the people he influenced, and the values he embodied. Strength, courage, wisdom, and reflection are interwoven into a narrative that flows as gently as the currents of a quiet river, as enduringly as the mountains and forests of his homeland. The listener is carried through tension, triumph, and reflection, ultimately arriving at a space of calm, restorative contemplation. In this serene conclusion, the story fulfills its dual purpose, to entertain through myth and history, while simultaneously providing a meditative, immersive experience suitable for rest and reflection. Beowulf's journey, from the halls of Heorot to the depths of the dragon's lair, from youthful heroism to reflective wisdom, serves as a gentle guide, illustrating that the rhythms of life, courage, and legacy are intertwined with observation, patience, and measured action. The narrative closes on this note, leaving the listener enveloped in calm, reflective satisfaction and a sense of continuity that gently lulls the mind toward rest.